welcome. I know everybody quieted down. I guess that was my cue to start, all right? I'd like you all to join us in the pledge. I'd like to ask our board member to lead us in the pledge. Thank you. Please rise.
Student board member.
Flag. Flag.
All right, well, let's say it anyway. We'll pretend. Go ahead.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice to all.
Thank you. Sometimes you just have to be a little creative. Okay, Mr. Gorski?
Mrs. Arminio.
Here.
Mr. Chiarella. Here. Mrs. DeMayo.
Here.
Mrs. Koloponowicz.
Here.
Nicotinsky.
Here.
Mr. Peluri. Here. Mr. Ryback.
Here.
Mrs. Siegel.
Here.
Mr. Tefano.
Here.
And Mr. Rutsky.
Here.
Mr. Board President, you have a quorum present this evening.
Good, thank you.
In accordance with the provisions of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law, the Monroe Township Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted February 14th, 2020 at all schools, the Home News Tribune, the Cranberry Press, and filed with the clerk of the municipality.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have approval of the minutes. I'd like a motion to approve the minutes of the Public Board of Education meeting organization, the meeting of January 2nd, 2020.
So moved. Second.
Okay, any questions, concerns? All in favor?
No,
I have
Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Arminio, I did not see your hand.
Yes. I reviewed the I reviewed that particular meeting, and even though it was a short meeting and it was to elect officers, 3 board members made statements regarding the candidates, and none of that has appeared on the minutes. So I think that we should probably, I know it's not a verbatim minutes, but the public should know some comments that each board member makes in some way. So I'm going to be voting no for that. It's incomplete in my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
I reviewed the board meetings, and I find those to be acceptable.
Okay, so let me say, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Yes.
1. Any abstentions?
Right here, 2.
Oh, you're opposed?
Yeah.
2 opposed, okay. Okay, motion to approve the closed session meeting of January 2nd, 2020.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, second?
Second.
Thank you. Any concerns, questions? Then we could vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Recusals?
I'll
Abstentions?
abstain.
Abstain? Ms. Arminio? All right. Motion to approve the special Public Board of Education meeting of January 14th, 2020.
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Mr. Tufano, second. Any questions, comments? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Recuse.
Recuse, okay. Any
Recuse as
opposed?
well. I was not
You're
present.
recusing?
Not present.
Okay. Mr. Pelori, did I see your hand up? No, okay. Did you get them?
It's a recusal from Mrs. Koloponowicz, Mrs. Arminio, correct?
Would that be a recusal or an abstain because we were not present? I don't-
Recuse.
It is a recuse?
Recuse.
Okay, then I recuse.
Okay. Thank you. We can move on now. The student board members report.
We need the closed session.
I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Closed session meeting, January 14th, 2020.
So moved.
Thank you. And
Second
second, Mr. Pelori. Any questions, concerns? Or we could vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Recuse.
Recusals. Mrs.
Recuse as well.
Koloponowicz and Ms. Arminio recuse.
So noted.
All right, now we can have our student board members report.
Okay, so this Friday, the Mayor's Youth Advisory Committee is hosting a guest speaker, Jeff Yeldon, who will be talking to freshmen and senior students about important topics like stress management in high school. Today, FBLA members that advanced from the regional level took the online testing portion of their state-level competitions, and the State Leadership Conference for that will be held from March 18th to March 20th. DECA State Conference and Competition will be held from March 2nd and March 4th, and they will compete in role play events for the chance to advance to the International Conference later this year. And finally, the MTHS Spanish Honor Society will be fundraising for a local charity through their annual dance-a-thon, which will be held on February 28th this year.
Thank you. Anybody have questions for our student board member? All right, well, thank you. Now we're ready for presentations, always a good part of the agenda. Support staff of the year, Dr. Alvick?
Yep, can you join me?
Sure, it'd be my pleasure.
Hey, good evening. This is one of the great meetings that we have where we get to celebrate some of our staff members. So this month we are celebrating our support staff of the year. So every year, our staff and community get to elect from each school and from central office and from transportation one of our excellent support staff members to celebrate. So we have several of them here this evening, so we're going to recognize them this evening. So we will start with Barclay Brooks School, Susan Fortunata. From Oak Tree School, Dina Urbano. From Brookside School, Beverly Montesseri. From Mill Lake School, Tammy Goldstein. Come stand up.
Aren't you the one that doesn't like to hug and kiss? Right? He's a funny one.
From Monroe Township Middle School, Frank Herislack. From our transportation department, Stephen Cohen. And from central office, Rashima Zielinski. Okay, we're also recognizing some of our students this evening for their outstanding performance. We're going to start with some of our high school students. So every year, our students participate in the American Legion Oratorical Competition. This is a really difficult competition where the students have to write their speech, They have to get up, they have to present it. They were presented with their awards a couple of weeks ago. So I want to recognize the students. We have when they were presented with the awards, all three of them earned first place, but one student has to be the student that goes and presents to the county group. So we end up having a first place and 2 second place, but really they're all winners. So our first place winner is Ashnu Kasad. Then one of our second place winners, Driti Agrawal. And our other second place winner is Rafael Gabe Toto. And I'd also like to introduce Mr. Maralda to come up and share some of our students who have earned their achievement in all state ensembles. Oh, and Mr. Snyder.
Thank you, Dr. Alvik, Mr. Ryback. Here we are again. Thank you so much for having us and the opportunity to recognize 4 outstanding students that as soon as tomorrow will be down in, representing Monroe Township at the New Jersey Music Educators Association State Conference. And what's unique about these students is that New Jersey is known throughout the country as having some of the top performing arts programs in the country, and that these students were recognized as being at the top of their instrument throughout the entire state of New Jersey. So it's an unbelievable accomplishment given the level of talent that exists in New Jersey, and to have 4 people from Monroe Township High School identified as all-state musicians is truly incredible and a testament to the teachers, obviously, one of which is here tonight, Mr. Snyder, so I thought it was appropriate to bring him up as we recognize our students. I would like to start with Matthew Cipriaso on alto clarinet. The next 3 students you can come on up. The next 3 students we will introduce are all percussionists. And what's interesting about this statistic is that there are 4 all-state percussionists in the state of New Jersey, and 3 out of the 4 are from our high school. So it's an unbelievable accomplishment in no particular order. Elizabeth Toda, Ria Sharma, and Joshua Fabrican. And maybe Matt can come back up for a picture. We'll do a photo real quick.
Yes, photo op. Get a picture with the teacher.
Thank you, Mr. Snyder. And I would like to thank Dr. Alvik and the board for this opportunity. And obviously, we wouldn't be able to have all of these tremendous accomplishments if we didn't have such wonderful commitment to the arts here in Monroe Township. So I thank the community and the board for that. Thank you.
Okay. Next presentation is MTA Pride. Dr. Lehman.
So for tonight's MTA Pride presentation, I'm going to introduce Allie Bardis. She's one of the teachers at Mill Lake School. On January 13th, Mill Lake's self-contained teachers and the students from their classes were invited to attend an evening of reading with some of their siblings and pals. Parents who attended the event participated in an educational PowerPoint showcasing reading terminology, strategies, and useful information to guide them in reading at home with their students. While this took place, students were engaged in read-alouds, practicing strategies, enjoying snacks, and creating bookmarks with their peers and siblings. At the conclusion of the event, students and parents practiced reading together and were able to ask teachers for assistance and feedback on skills as they were trying out those skills with their children. Each child went home with a copy of a book provided by the grant funding. And at the conclusion of the event, a survey went out to parents requesting feedback for teachers to improve the event for next year. So, Mrs. Bardis.
Thank you. You want to do the clicking for me? Or do you want me to grab that from you?
He doesn't want that responsibility.
Hi, everyone. As Dr. Lehman said, my name is Allie Bardis. You need the mic. Myself and some of the other special education teachers in our building put together a grant provided by the MTEA and the New Jersey Teaching Education Association to be able to provide some of the special education students in our school building with an opportunity to come back in the evening and read while their parents are able to dabble and explore with some of the terminology that we use every day in the classroom. And what was really wonderful about this event is that we also invited some of our classroom peer models that we call pals to join as well, and siblings of the students who were coming, so that they could really immerse themselves in the reading education with people that they admire and they would love to spend their time with. So I have for you tonight some photos of the event. I'm going to move this way so I can read what I wrote for you. So collaboratively, the teachers of special education at Mill Lake created a cohesive presentation for parents to learn reading strategies and terms, as well as understanding milestones and terminology. Some staff presented this information while others took care of the monitoring and engaging students in activities that were set aside specifically for our type of learners. So myself and another teacher presented in the library to the parents, and the students were able to participate in fun activities that were geared specifically for their needs. These are just some photos that show us presenting to the parents, and all of the parents being very engaged. While the parents were learning strategies to use at home, the learners were able to enjoy some snacks. They made bookmarks and enjoyed listening to a read-aloud demonstrating the strategies their parents were learning about. And after the parent presentation, the students' activities were complete. The students joined their parents to try out some of their strategies together as they read their new books. The books were laid out that had a range of interests and ability level, so that students could also enjoy something with their parents that they too would enjoy at home. And then at the end, they were able to take a book home with them to keep that they could practice the strategies again with in case there was no literature for them to use at home. And you could see that the parents and the children really seemed to be enjoying themselves. They were able to enjoy opportunities with their kids that possibly they hadn't done before, or try a strategy that they never knew would be successful. Kids of varying ages and abilities were able to enjoy some of these reading strategies with their families. Pals and principals alike were able to join in the festivities, and many students even brought their siblings with them for the evening. As a teacher, it was a great opportunity to share some of the wonderful strategies that we use regularly with families. And as parents, we received feedback through email and highlighting things in their speaking to us that showed that they really enjoyed the opportunity to partner and connect with parents of special needs readers, and that they felt it was a wonderful opportunity for them to see other parents, that their parents never stop learning, just like they're still learning in school, and that after finishing their education, they still need to come back to school sometimes to learn how they can do their best to help them be better readers. We also sent out a short survey that asked specific questions highlighting what they felt was helpful and useful and what things they thought we could do better with next year, so that if we do this activity in the future, which we hope to do, we can make sure that it's even better for parents and students alike. As far as the students go, I have two students with me tonight who attended the event. One of the students is in my class, and another student's across the hall from us. He's our pal. And they both had a little something that they wanted to share with you so that you could understand what they liked about the event. You ready?
Should I start? My name is Justin Spalding. I'm a third grade student at Middle Lake School. I've been a pal since this September in Miss Lawani's preschool. I like to do fun activities with my pals. Some activities that I like to do is play bingo, play guessing games, and participating in the evening of reading. I think this program is important because it helps the preschoolers with autism and it teaches me to care about others. It also helps me be patient with others.
Hello, my name's Logan. I love books and I had fun at the party and I love the snacks there. And I love my parents. They're great. My Nana reads me books every day. I help her sometimes. I love my Nana so much. We watch Arthur. The end.
And Logan's grandmother actually sent a really nice email earlier today, just reminding me that it's really nice for parents to be able to come and connect with other parents and to see that they're not alone when it comes to learning how to help their children. So we appreciate that the MTEA was able to provide us with the money that could make this event happen.
Oh, well, I'd like to, on behalf of the board, congratulate all the recipients of the awards today, and certainly MTA for their Pride presentation, and those two gentlemen. It was just wonderful. And this is our youth, and look how great they are. Imagine when they get to be adults, they'll be that much better. And I thank all the teachers and principals and everybody, and parents especially, that had so much to do with having children like this, to speak this way. It's just wonderful, very refreshing. Anyhow, we can now move to harassment, imitation, and bullying. What a segue for that. From this. Anyhow, is that Dr. Alvick? Okay. Oh, Lehman, I'm sorry.
So we're setting up a presentation. This is our biannual report, so we're required to report to the public twice a year on our harassment, intimidation, and bullying statistics. This reporting period is inclusive of July 2019 through December 2019. So this is the end of last calendar year. This is a definition of our harassment, intimidation, and bullying. We have specialists in each building. The administration, the HIB specialists, they work together and identify and look at situations and classify them as either a bullying situation or not. And those are, again, the statistics we're going to present out on tonight. This is a list of our HIB specialists. You'll see there's one specialist per elementary school and two for each of the high school and the middle school. Typically, these are our school counselors and easily accessible. If you need any assistance from them, you can directly just call the office and they'll transfer you right to them. District data. So last year, between July and December, we had 16 reported cases of HIB. 14 were founded and 2 were unfounded. As you see, they all took place between the middle school and the high school. We had 6 at the middle school and 8 at the middle school, 6 at the high school. This is the nature of the HIB cases. This will not add up to 14, as some of the cases are classified through multiple characteristics. But you can see they're relatively evenly spread out. There is a slight bias towards appearance. And this is something we take a look at when we do our character education programs and we look at what we can do to support and prevent bullying. We kind of diagnose and analyze this data to be more preventive. Again, we also analyze who the targets were. As you can see, in terms of ethnicities, 13 targets were white, and then there's a distribution between the other ethnicities. So again, this is some data we take back, we look at, we see how we can kind of address this in the future and prevent this in the future. This is our self-assessment. So once a year, the HIB specialists get together with our HIB coordinator, the district coordinator. They also consult with the building administration, and this is a self-assessment. So there are different categories in which they'll take a look at the building, the programs, the procedures we have in place. Some of our district procedures, some of them are we following the state guidelines and laws? The max score for this is 78 points. Our district score was a 76. That's an average between all the schools together. And you can see we really take an honest kind of reflection of approach to this, so we can use this tool to tweak our policies, tweak our procedures, tweak our investigation methods, whatever it takes. So our goal is clearly to max out, but this is a report of the 2017-2018 self-assessment. We submitted the 2018-2019 one this fall. It will be processed by the state, and then we'll release it this time next year to kind of reflect on our 2018-2019 statistics. So the outcome of our HIB investigations, sometimes they have two paths. If they're founded, there's typically a disciplinary path as well as a remediation path. So the disciplinary side is a consequence, a detention, suspension, some sort of consequence. And then on the flip side, both the victim and the offender, they get some sort of remediation. And you'll see in a moment, the remediation, it depends on the type of situation. It could be counseling or some sort of situation like that. And if we analyze the data and we need to go broader than just that one specific incident, you'll see we kind of go to a classroom perspective. We take guidance lessons to the classroom if needed. We expand it to school-wide programs. And then if it's a community-wide issue, and it's, again, we always have our eye on the community, we can engage our local law enforcement as needed as well. So this is our remediation plan. It starts with the individual student, branches to the classroom, the school, and the community. The whole goal is to prevent and educate. 14 found cases is 14 too many, but in the scheme of things, we're doing a really good job in terms of proactive educating, taking a look at the whole child. We talked about grit in the curriculum committee meeting today, learning what the difference between typical peer interactions and then something that crosses a line and meets the definition of bullying. So we do a lot of work with our students starting in the very young grades, kindergarten, pre-K, all the way up through the high school. And here are some examples of some specific programs. They change every year. Again, we look at the data, we look at our student body and what their needs are. And just a few highlights. We do Week of Respect. It's something every school participates in. The High School Challenge Day is something that's high school specific. Every school has a character education program. One of our schools is going through the process to be a school of character. We have staff trainings. It's a requirement we do every year at the beginning of the school year. Every staff member in the entire district gets trained, from bus paraprofessionals, bus drivers, all the way through to the certificated staff. We do parent education. It's part of our back to school night presentations. So we try and flood everyone with information, facts about harassment, intimidation, and bullying in an attempt to be very proactive and prevent it. And that's it.
Thank you, Dr. Lehman. Board members have any questions for Dr. Lehman on this?
I would like to thank you, Dr. Lehman. Not only for the presentation, but all the information and all that you do with regards to this, and Dr. Alvick too. But one of the things that I found interesting, and I've been on the board for a long time, was restorative justice. And I thought that was an interesting concept, and I had never heard of it before until we had an incident where that was used, and with counseling and things like that. I don't know if you want to explain that, but I found it very interesting, and I think our parents would find that interesting also.
Yeah, sure.
Sure. One of the things that we started doing a few years ago, we started specifically in the middle school, but it's kind of spread since then, is restorative justice. And we did it as a part of our whole child program, and looking at the needs specifically in the middle school of, they're learning. So we want them to understand not just to have a consequence, but understand what happens with their actions. So restorative justice is really having the students reflect on any behavior or any mistake that they made, and how they can make it better the next time. Another piece of restorative justice, though, also is building those communities within the classrooms. So we have staff members who are trained in restorative justice that now go in and work with classroom teachers to build more communities within the classroom so that we have less of these incidents happening. To, sometimes, a student may bump into another student in the hallway, and, if anyone knows middle schoolers, it's immediately against them, where sometimes it might just be that other student just bumped into them. So trying to get them to understand where some of the actions, and not only focusing on themselves, but really focusing on their community and how they can be accepting of each other.
Excellent. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, then we can move to committee reports. Any committee chair? Mr. Mayo?
We had a curriculum committee meeting today, and we had 3 visitors from the public, which I'd like to thank them for coming. It's nice to have people come to visit us. We reviewed reading 1 and 2. The purpose of reading 1 and 2 is to prepare students for the literacy demands of the world. This course specifies learning goals for students with mild to moderate cognitive delays and outlines the appropriate progression of skills and understandings for each of these goals. Students will build the necessary literary skills to pursue their future objectives, including furthering their education, entering the workforce, and/or becoming productive and integrated members of the community. Each course's breadth and depth of practical comprehension skills. Reading 1 and 2 is intended to spiral throughout the student's ELA experience. The course is designed to develop literacy and communication skills aligned to the New Jersey Core Content Curriculum Standards. This elective concentrates on the knowledge and skills linked to the grade level expectations identified in the Common Core State Standards. Learning goals for the students were created to focus on reading, and in particular comprehension, writing, speaking, listening, and research and inquiry skills. In order to differentiate the course to meet the individual student needs, each goal has attached academic targets at specific levels of cognitive complexity. As well as technology will be incorporated into the course as a tool for making the learning environment more accessible. The primary focus of assistive technology will be the generalization and practical application of skills in a safe and closely monitored environment.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Mayo from the board? Any other committee chair? Ms. Siegel?
Thank you. So I have a policy committee update. We had our first meeting last week, and just to share with the public, our policy committee members for this year are Mrs. Koloponowicz, Mr. Nikitinsky, Mr. Tufano, and Mr. Ryback. I'd like to thank all of you for your time. We had a short policy agenda last week. We have one policy that we have put on the agenda for first reading, policy number 8420, emergency evacuation, and we have a bunch of other policies and regulations that are on the agenda for reaffirmation. A couple things I just wanted to share regarding policy, just some general information for the public. The board sets the policy, we determine the what, and the regulations are set by the administration. They work on the how portion. Strauss Esme provides the Board of Education with policy alerts on a regular basis to ensure that the board's policies and regulations are compliant with state and federal law. The policy alerts contain proposed policies and regulations, which are often quite lengthy, as they contain all proposed additions and/or deletions to the language in the current policies and regulations. Once the proposed policies and regulations are approved by the board after second and final reading, they will either be longer or shorter in length, depending on the extent of the additions and/or deletions to the language in the new policies and regulations. Another thing that we want to continue to do through the policy committee, as we had started last year, was to educate the public on different topics. So I actually had gone back to my governance training that we had done as new board members last year, and I thought we'd start at the top and just find different topics that we can talk about. Last year, Patty had done a presentation or shared some information about public forums. So this year, I thought we could start with the 4 functions of the Board of Education. I'm going to read through them tonight, and we've also included them in the policy minutes, so you'll be able to access them online. So the first one is to provide guidance through policy development in the areas of instruction, personnel, general administration, fiscal and business management, physical plan, and community relations. Number 2, to provide for a program of quality instruction by adopting curriculum standards, academic goals for students, assessing district and personnel needs to ensure student achievement of the standards, supporting professional development training for staff, and requiring reports on the results of student assessment. 3 is to provide for the effective management of the district by employing and evaluating the chief school administrator, establishing policies for monitoring district finance, curriculum, buildings and grounds, and personnel, and requiring reports on the results of policy implementation. Number 4 is to provide for two-way communication between community and the board by informing the public about the schools, promoting parents' presence in schools and at school functions, evaluating the superintendent on how effectively parental input is solicited and considered, and working to secure public support for the schools and public understanding of district goals. And that's my report.
Thank you. Any questions from the board for Mr. Siegel? Okay. Any other committee chair?
I have one, Steve.
Well,
Oh, yeah, I'll let him.
Want to finish this side?
No, you go.
I figured I'd work on one side.
All right. My committee report is for finance. The agenda had 4 items on there. I'll just say for the first agenda item, it was student transportation contract, which, while on the agenda, we ended up not discussing at the meeting. So I believe it's on tonight's actual agenda. We then went on to bond refunding update. And so we talked at the last board meeting about the idea of refunding some of our bonds. Mike went over a lot of the statistics and a lot of what we were hoping to accomplish. So good news is it's done, and it worked out even better than we thought. So we as a board refunded bonds. There was a Series 2012 with an average interest rate of 4.42%, with a total par value of $34 million and change. And there was another bond series of 2015 with an average interest of 4.8 and a total par value of almost $42 million. So in total, we were talking about $75 million worth of bonds in total. So great news is the bonds are being replaced with newly issued bonds, keeping to the same maturity schedule, so we didn't extend any duration, but we significantly reduced the combined interest rate down to 2.45. The total debt savings for that both series equals $6.4 million after payment of all costs of issuance. Those savings, because it's spread out over 18 years, it would have been the maturity of these bonds. The savings will average $357,000 per year, which will directly reduce the debt service fund tax levy. The present value savings of those bonds refunded is about 6.37%. So great job all around. I'll say great job, and we'll compliment and we'll thank Mr. Gorski, Ms. Allen, as well as our bond counselor and the financial advisor that worked so closely on this project. In that savings of $6.4 million was an extra $670,000, and that's why I say it worked out even better than we planned, because they were able to aggressively watch interest rates and catch a lower bid, and then take the escrow funding that comes in and purchase treasury investments with that, and at least we'll earn some interest on that money. So collectively, that was an extra $670,000 of savings that we had not been planning for. So excellent job all around on that one.
Yes, thank you.
Third was the budget update. Always an interesting time. So right now, for the 2020 budget, appropriations have been assembled. With certain accounts, we're making use of estimates as best we can. Additionally, revenues were projected, and unfortunately, I will say at this time, our preliminary budget is currently $3.7 million above cap. So there's some work to be done over the next few months, as you will all work diligently, and we at the Finance Committee look forward to updates. Last thing on the agenda was the Jamesburg tuition and the 2018-2019 Form A41 and A42, which is the form that summarizes the number of students from Jamesburg attending Monroe, and then more specifically, Monroe as a district, and the average expense per student of every school. So with that report coming in, unfortunately, the average price per high school student actually went up last year, more than we had expected. So while, and I will say this as the Jamesburg rep, of course, so we have a set amount that we're paying to Monroe. We are still overpaying the tuition by $68,591. The only problem is we were hoping to overpay by about $250,000 and continue to work down some of the liability that's in the balance. But the numbers are what the numbers are, and we'll all hope that our cost per student will go down a little bit next year, and it'll work out, the numbers will work out a little bit better. With the $68,000 that is being paid down this year, it brings the liability to a balance of a little over $1.5 million. We talked about that was a 5.1% increase per high school student from last year, and so that's kind of what caught us. A $6 million increase in the 18-19 budget accounts for the unusual per pupil in tuition increase, and as I said, we do expect that to be sort of the high watermark, and then for the 19-20 year, we expect it to be reversing course again as it had been. So that concludes my finance report.
Thank you, Mr. Rutsky. Any questions,
I have a
Mr. Rutsky?
question.
Well, Mr. Peluri, and then,
Okay,
You'll go first.
okay, thank you.
okay. He's a
What do we
gentleman.
believe caused the increase in the cost per student at the high school level?
The $6 million, so I'll answer, and then Mike, I'm sure you'll do better than me. But it's the insurance rates going up, it's the contract negotiation and salaries going up.
Okay.
It's more teachers to support the more students. I miss anything?
Mr. Chair. Mr. Rutsky put it well. It's the cost of labor agreements, it's cost of health insurance. Some of those exceeded our budgeted figures. And
I mean, I think it's everything, but even more buses. Everything factors into the
Yeah.
cost per student.
I was going to conclude by saying growth certainly has had an impact on expenditures here. That's not just an anomaly for that year, but every year. But that particular year, appropriations grew by about $6 million. The year after that, which we're looking forward to next year, was only 3. So that was an anomaly. As Mr. Rutsky very well said, we expected greater overpayment than we recognized, but still the agreement's working. It was overpaid by about $68,000. The overpayment, the arrearage from Jamesburg is going down. It was about $2 million. It's down to 1.5 now. We're very confident that it will be satisfied within the terms of the agreement between the two districts.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I think Mr. Rutsky reported that we're over budget by $3.7 million.
Yes.
And I understand based on the meeting that we're looking at renegotiating our healthcare benefits that could provide some savings in it. So my question is that did that $3.7 million include projected costs with potential contract renewal for the Teachers Association?
Mr. Chair? Yes. Yes, the budget, all of the appropriation accounts have been updated. As Mr. Rutsky said, many are still based upon estimate. Health insurance increases is one, because that's a negotiable process until probably April. Every month, we wait for our claims information, our loss ratios. We get competitive quotes from other carriers. So right now in the budget is an 8.4% increase proposed by Horizon. I guarantee you that's not going to stay, and it's going to go down from there, hopefully significantly. And on a $26 million account, that's material to how much we're over cap once that's finalized. Teacher salaries are also estimated in there. What's unique about this year is the Teachers Association, the MTEA, which also includes bus drivers and paraprofessionals, as well as the Monroe Township Administrators Association, which is principals and supervisors, are out of contract and being negotiated now. So it's a contingency that's put in the budget but there's nothing defined in a labor contract.
Understood. One question, more than a question, it's a comment, is the fact that last year, we went through the cuts just to get to the bottom line number, and I know that transportation was cut as one of the line items. I think this year we got to be a lot more diligent to make sure that we're communicating whatever the cuts are to the public, especially if it comes down to the transportation. I brought that up, but I want to bring it up again, that if there is any cut like that, let's advise the public well in advance.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, I just want to say, I'm going to address that a little bit in my president's report.
I just wanted to add to Mr. Peluri's comment. Right now, administration is sifting through all of the new appropriations that are in the budget. It's much easier to cut new appropriations as opposed to something that people are relying upon. So we're doing that first, but it does appear that we're going to have some modifications to programs and services at this juncture. That's a large amount to be over cap. And, it's not an overspending amount right now that it appears. It's an under-revenue problem. We're losing $1.7 million of excess surplus compared to last year, which means your revenues are $1.7 million less than the preceding year, although all these other expenses are going up. Plus our state aid, even under S2, where we're one of the few districts that benefit from it, is only expected to increase about $400,000. We have not included that in the budget yet, to be conservative. We're waiting for the award to come in March. But we could certainly use a lot more state aid there to make things more reasonable. We're receiving the same state aid amount right now that we did 10 years ago. And that's very hard to manage a budget where you have all the effects of growth compounding every year.
That doesn't include the amount of growth that we've been experiencing over those
Correct.
years.
Correct.
So,
Can I actually ask a question?
Sure.
So when we say over cap, we're factoring the 2% cap? Do we have anything banked that we can rely on, lean on?
Yes, $458,000 of bank cap has been applied.
So that's in the number,
That was recommended by the board's budget philosophy, so that it's already included in there. That was one of the anomalies also in that the budget year that we just reconciled with Jamesburg. There was a lot of utilization of bank cap that year. So that did also help to grow the appropriations because it allowed more room. We don't have that flexibility this year, except to the tune of $458,000, which is not much.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the board? Okay, Mr. Tufano?
No, I'm going to let Andy go.
Oh, Mr. President, I thought he was good, quick segue, and I'll wrap up the committee report very quickly. The Education Advocacy Committee meeting, actually, we met on January 28th. The committee consists of Jill DeMayo as a vice chair, Ken Chiarella, Steve Ryback, and myself as the chairperson. We discussed the commissioner's visit back in January, and as we reported back to the public, it went fairly well. And one of the takeaways, we mainly talked about the takeaways from that meeting, and one of them was for Dr. Alvik and Mr. Groski to actually go and see the Freehold Borough School District and see how they were able to get additional funding from the state, and want to see if there's a model that we can adopt. The reason I want to go first, Peter, is because we're talking about the funding and $3.7 million over cap. I thought it was appropriate for us to go through that very quickly, and maybe the public can help us in getting some of this money as well. Dr. Alvik actually sent a press release. We're trying to create a buzz in the legislative district to make sure that people understand that we are in a hardship. She actually reached out to a bunch of newspapers. I believe just one of them responded to us and published the article, and hopefully you got a chance to see it. And the committee discussed how we need to continue to keep the pressure on the elected officials to make sure that there's a line item that was put in the budget that's coming up. The budget is going to be drafted shortly in a few weeks, and it'll be very interesting and more important for us, not interesting actually, it's going to be important for us to make sure that there's a line item put in for Monroe Township, and that's exactly what we discussed. There was a discussion about having a letters campaign. Some of these things we have tried in the past again, but I think every year we start all over again. So I think maybe a letter to the legislators with a signature campaign, and we're looking into that. And Dr. Alvik and Mr. Gorski will be getting back with some information on that shortly. I believe one other thing that two other things we talked about was in the public comments, there was some recommendations about private investment in our schools. we could take the penny any which way it comes. So I would like to explore that, or we would like to explore that a little bit more. So if you have any suggestions, please feel free to send it to either Dr. Alwick or Mr. Grosky, or even to the president, Mr. Ryback, and we'll look into it. And one other thing we entertained was the committee and some of the board members sitting here to talk to the students and actually televise that on Channel 28. Again, this is for public to get out there to understand that we are in a hardship in terms of money in the district, and any help we can get from the elected officials. That's all I have.
Any question for Mr. Pelori from the board? All right, Mr. Tufano.
I will have a report too after Mr. Tufano, but.
No, you can go ahead.
Because mine's probably going to be a lot shorter than yours.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm in no rush.
No? Okay. Personnel Committee meeting we had on February 12th, where, among other things, we reviewed increasing the rate of pay for those people working our athletic events to make us more comparable to other districts. We were looking at the positions of crowd control, ticket taker, ticket seller, pitch counter, clock operator, announcer for our sports, and video. These positions and the rates were approved by the committee, and they're on the board agenda for approval this evening. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Kalapanowicz? Now you got it.
Everybody's good?
Everybody's good. It's your turn.
Administration presented and reviewed a copy of the current integrated pest management plan. Prior to the meeting, the plan was reviewed with the school principals and no recommendations for revision were requested. The committee supports proceeding with the plan as currently maintained and proceeding with the reissuance of the same integrated pest management plan for the upcoming year. The committee also reviewed the bid results for the annual ground care maintenance contract and concur with administration recommendations to award the project to the lowest bidder, who was Pleasant View Landscaping Incorporated. They have been a successful low bidder in the district for the past several years, and their performance has been adequate, so we didn't want to, there was no reason to change that. Committee members shared their opinion regarding the viability of modular buildings for classroom expansion as a cost-effective way to address the district's overcrowding. The following concerns a few of us had, I wouldn't say they were concerns, they were more of statements. We wanted, if we did go along with the modular construction, we wanted the classrooms, the bathrooms for these facilities to be constructed a little bit better than what we reviewed in the Edison district. The floors were made out of cardboard, made out of plywood, and the kids were, if the sink were to run or the toilet was to run, the floor would break, wouldn't last long. So we wanted to find out what we could use better in material for it to last longer. Common areas weren't addressed in those classroom trailers. Construction durability of the roofing, we'd like to upgrade some kind of roofing material if possible to make them last longer. Several committee members expressed a desire to pursue modular buildings similar to Edison with a higher quality of construction for the aforementioned items. The committee directed administration to prepare a resolution for the recommendation for the buildings and grounds transportation committee to the board to develop a Plan B option utilizing modular construction at various schools to address overcrowding. The last thing we discussed was the Applegarth School. Committee members have expressed concern for long-term liability of the infrastructure, roof, boiler, plumbing, piping, etc. at Applegarth School. The boiler was put in 1937?
1936.
All right, so I gave it an extra year. 1936, a boiler in 1936. The committee agreed that it would be highly challenging, disruptive, and expensive to attempt renovations to the facility while it is occupied, and therefore expressed a desire for administration to explore options for potential modular building on the site to replace the building and/or conversion of the building to administration and special services facility, etc. That's going to be a big challenge, that Applegarth School. It needs a lot of work. That's all I have.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Tufano? Ms. Arminio?
I have several, but I'll ask one right now. So number 3, the item talking about the modular buildings, and the item 4, the funding for capital project in Apgar School, were any of those discussed as a potential for a new referendum, included in a new referendum? I mean, I think we're at the point where we need to start talking about another referendum, and putting this in, perhaps if these items get discussed and reviewed, we can maybe even scale down a referendum that could pass. I mean, we've had 2 failed referendums. We have enrollment issues, and these are options that we haven't discussed in the past for referendum items. So I'm wondering how the committee addressed this, and if we've got the administration, because since the beginning of the year, we're supposed to ask the administration to go forward and give us information. So has that occurred, and will we be doing that in the near future?
You want to answer it?
I could tell you I'm going to be making a motion that has something to do with that. I'm going to do that during the other board business. That's my answer to you.
Okay.
I mean, if anybody else wants to answer.
And there's also been previous discussion, in years past, about being able to build a newer facility on the Applegarth property. Are we talking about that again? I mean, I think some of the things that we discussed in the last year or two, again, because we have failed referendums and we do need classrooms, is can we put another facility or a newer facility on the Applegarth site without disrupting the students? I mean, there's land. I mean, I think we need to start revisiting these things that we were told in the past couldn't be done. I mean, I remember 20 years ago when we were putting this building up, they said we couldn't expand the middle school, and I think that is information that isn't entirely accurate at this time. I think there are possibilities to expand the middle school that was previously the high school. I mean, it wasn't something that people wanted to do in the past, but we have a different financial circumstance now. We don't have enough funds to just satisfy our operating budget. So how are we going to ask our community to pay for referendums? So again, we have to start thinking in different ways, and I would like us to take seriously these modular issues. And because the modulars seem to be, and again, I'm not an expert, but I'm asking the administration to do due diligence to see how the feasibility of them, the value of them, and it seems to me the cost of them is far less than we anticipate new construction for another structure.
If I can, I'd like to just make a few comments.
But let me just finish that. We just need to start having these discussions without negative pushback. Everything should be on the table. We should be discussing these ideas very rigorously. But thank you.
Okay. Well, let me start by saying that I think we're all on the same page. We need to come up with a plan. Right now we have ideas, we have suggestions. The only way we're going to get a plan is to authorize the administration to develop one. They're our experts. They're going to take all the data, all the information, and come up with something that hopefully would be acceptable to the Finance Committee, Buildings and Grounds Committee, and the board. It's all a deliberative process, and we have to go through this. But we need to let our experts, these administrators, do their job. Until we do that, all of this can't be answered. Now, I'll speak just for myself about modulars and about the building. I went to Edison, and as Mr. Tufano said, there were some issues. I saw some issues. The money-saving thing is a reality if it works, if it meets our needs. We'll only know that if we let them do their jobs. My concerns that I saw, he brought up, was the fact that they were wood frames, and Edison did not want to couldn't spend the money. It was $250,000 for fire suppression. They could have had it, but they didn't have the money. Otherwise, they would have had to go to a referendum that they wanted to avoid. So they put up these things without fire suppression. To me, that's dangerous, very dangerous, because it's all wood framed. You're putting your children in these, these modulars without any fire suppression. That was dangerous. No matter how many units they put up, they saved classroom space. They developed, classroom space. And I asked the principal and everyone, but what about things like the cafeteria, the gym, auditorium? She said that didn't benefit us there because you're getting more kids. Let's say you have 150, 200 kids, I'm just pulling a number out of the air, coming to your school. That's already overcrowded. So you're getting some extra classroom space, but you still have to, what about the cafeteria? You're going to have kids eating lunch at 9:30 in the morning? There's just so many lunch periods you could put in and just so many kids that you could fit in. So these are the issues. I don't have the answer. None of us have the answer. We need our administrators to find out. And Ms. Dominio, you're absolutely right. We need to look at cost savings. We need to look at all these things, but we need to authorize them to go ahead and start this process. They're our experts. They're the ones that could do it. And once again, when they come up with a plan, that's going through a whole deliberative process. The committees will have to get presented to the board. We can ask these questions, but until we have a plan that's down here and something we could look at, we're just, pulling questions from the air. We need to develop a program that's not just going to save money, but that's going to work educationally as well. We don't want to put in units that are going to diminish parking spaces for staff, for parents. We have people that, buses coming in, we have parents dropping off, picking up kids. You need parking spaces for that. All of these things have to be considered.
Right. My thought, though, is that trailers are going to do the same thing. Everything that you said that was negative about the possibility of modular buildings,
Sure,
the
but we're
trailers are
thinking
going to do
of
the
that
same
being a
thing.
temporary fix.
What, modulars?
The trailers.
Well, that's the
temporary.
problem. They're very costly for a temporary fix.
Well,
So we should have a cost-benefit analysis of both things.
so we need to let these
Well,
administrators.
So are we
solve.
going to get a cost-benefit analysis on the district modular buildings, is my question from the committee.
Well, if we approve a motion,
Bless
I'm sorry?
Okay, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll have it done.
We shouldn't have one stagnant idea is what I think I'm concerned
Okay,
about.
let's see what happens when we start talking about the motions. Okay, I guess we can move on to the public forum. This is for the agenda items only.
Steve, may I just ask a
Yes,
question?
sure.
I think one of the first things that Michelle started off with is the fact that the first item, I think she said on the building grounds and transportation, there's item number 3 and item number 4. 3 is what we discussed, 4 was not discussed. So the question is that are we looking at putting those as a part of the referendum if we go down that road? I think that was your question, right, Michelle?
Yeah.
You're talking about the modulars.
Right. Is that something that that is being
We should
considered?
include it.
It may have to, we don't have the money to buy them, and we may have to do a referendum either way, but depends on what they come up with. How many units, if any? Do we need a brick and mortar building? These are the things that they have to
No, I'm
determine
talking
and
specifically
give
about
us.
Applegarth only. I'm not talking about the modular.
Oh, Applegarth,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm sorry. I think that, though, we did talk about replacing Applegarth with a new building at the Buildings and Grounds. We did discuss it, and I guess in what way we're going to replace it, my feeling is, let's leave it up to them and see what works out
I
best.
think what we had discussed was to address the emergency needs that we have now for the overcrowding first, and then work on Applegarth.
Well, we did talk about
Right.
something with Applegarth, but I think that has to come from our administrators. Okay. I guess we can go to public forum. And this is to address agenda items, and I'm sorry, and when you come up to the microphone, your name, your address, and you have 4 minutes.
Good evening. I'm Sarah Aziz, 3 Launcelot Drive. I want to address the criticism that our Board of Education somehow failed the taxpayers by not following Edison's example of building permanent modular construction to alleviate our overcrowding problem. Edison's new modular construction are of poor quality and not fire resistant. I don't think Monroe should follow their example. I don't want my child learning in a potentially hazardous classroom. In fact, if Monroe got these modular units, and God forbid there was a fire, it could result in dead or injured children or staff, devastated families, and a multi-million-dollar lawsuit against the Board of Education. The Board of Education may come to regret attempting to save money by installing these units in the first place. Monroe can and should do better. Most importantly, these modular units did not solve Edison's overcrowding problem. Their common areas, including the cafeteria, the gym, the auditorium, are still overcrowded. In spite of the addition of these modular units, Edison still needed to pass a $189 million referendum to solve their overcrowding problem across the district. According to an article on centraljersey.com published last December, one of their school supervisors said that in Edison, there are students who are eating lunch in their classrooms, students that are having classes in converted closets, and being served lunch in the hallways. In fact, this supervisor also said that when classes change, the situation in the hallways is so dangerous that children are not allowed to carry backpacks because they're packed into the hallways like quote-unquote sardines. Even if Monroe were to add modular classroom additions onto some of our existing schools, we would still have the problem of overcrowded cafeterias, hallways, and other common areas. And at some point, we will need to build a new school anyway. Furthermore, if Monroe got the same Edison-type modular units and then spent the money to make the necessary upgrades to them, it could wind up costing as much or more than traditional brick or mortar building that would last much longer. In other words, this modular construction plan is penny wise and pound foolish. It is a short-sighted solution that should be totally rejected because it will likely cost taxpayers more money over the long term. The bottom line is, I think that we need a new school. Again, I urge our community to stand behind the ad hoc proposal for a new intermediate grade 5 to 6 school and a limited classroom expansion onto the high school. Such an intermediate school is likely to cost less than the previously proposed grade 6 to 8 middle school or the larger classroom expansion that failed in the previous referenda. The former golf site remains the most cost-effective location for the new school, and all the necessary state approvals have already been obtained. If there are some board members that oppose the golf site, then the onus should be on them to suggest a different location that will cost taxpayers less time and money. I do qualify the support of the golf site location with the understanding that a new traffic study is needed. If the new traffic study proves that this location is unsafe, and if there's no way we could work with the town to address the traffic problem, then of course, at that point, the Board of Education has a responsibility to find a new location based on the evidence. The safety of our residents is paramount, and decisions should be guided based on evidence, not conjecture or speculation. Time is of the essence, and a delay in moving forward will cost taxpayers more money as the cost of building materials rises every year, and our children continue to struggle in overcrowded schools. Finally, it is important to note that if left unaddressed, our school overcrowding problem will have a very negative effect on our property values, and many homeowners may be adversely affected regardless of whether they have children in the schools or not. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public?
Good evening, Ram Rangnath, 6 Owens Drive, Monroe. I had actually quite a few points I wanted to cover, but one of our fellow citizens, Chrissy Skirby, couldn't make it, so she had shared some points that I'm going to read out. Just to comment on, I appreciate Sarah's points, but I don't know, I just felt it was the mayor of Monroe Township talking. I'll just leave it at that. So this is addressed, and also condolence to Dr. Alwick before I start. Very sorry to loss. So Dr. Alwick, Dr. Lehman, and Monroe Township BOE members, I, Chrissy Skirby here, attended the BGT Building Grounds and Transportation meeting last week, and I witnessed what I felt was a responsible conversation that focused on a lot of important factors that go into making such a large decision that impacts all our residents, as well as students and staff of the Monroe Township Public Schools. Appreciated hearing that there are discussions happening with the superintendent, assistant superintendent, and facility director regarding options other than the ad hoc proposal to address student growth. The conversation at BGT meeting was real and focused on needing to understand what the public will support in the referendum, also something that is balanced with what is best for education. The township traffic study of Applegarth and Cranberry Station Road was brought up, and it was discussed how dangerous the location of the golf course is for a school to be built there. Ideas for that included probably making a bus depot, I think, which is also very much needed, and other alternatives. After a lengthy conversation, the committee unanimously agreed to present a resolution to be read at today's BOE, and I'm hoping Mr. Tufano would be doing that, or a motion, asking the BOE to explore what is called Plan B option that would include modular construction of additions, as well as looking at restructuring the middle school to be a grade 7 and 8 school with 6 back into elementary schools, and of course any modular extensions in the elementary schools. The committee agreed that the district needed to explore all cost-effective ideas and needs to make a fiscally responsible decision. And she says here that later this evening, if the committee, the same day, same evening, I guess, the Finance Committee had a meeting as well. I guess the Business Administrator, Mr. Gorski, is in both the committees, if I'm not mistaken. And I guess the audience, and clearly Chrissy, felt that pretty much the BGT was kind of thrown under the bus in the Finance Committee. There's a recording of this meeting, so available publicly, people can listen to it, make their own judgments. The BE did not explain the conversation that took place at BGT. It was a very heartfelt, spirited conversation. Thank you to all the BGT members who were involved. He only said, this is the only statement he focused on was that if we don't move full steam ahead with the ad hoc proposal, then the referendum for this year is impossible. I want to caution the BOE from doing what was done in the past. Don't rush to a referendum that will be defeated. Do your diligence and really plan a referendum that has a chance of passing, that the voters will support, our senior citizens will support. You have the power to bring all the sides together, step back and look at what is in front of you. The ad hoc committee came up with a proposal, which was an idea from a resident that had zero cost analysis and didn't even include any demographics. To move full steam ahead without looking at other options would be irresponsible. If a motion is presented tonight, I'm asking as a resident, parent of school children, and a long-time advocate for education to please pass the motion, which is the motion, hopefully, that Peter will present on Plan B, the BGT will present on Plan B, and allow the administration to do its due diligence on that plan and present something that's responsible and beneficial for Monroe.
Thank you.
Okay.
Gazala Bora, 1 Miko Drive. I have to say that from the last Board of Ed meeting to this one, I'm really, really happy to see the discussion for modular out here in the open. The BGNT meeting had a very detailed discussion on an optional plan besides what the ad hoc committee has proposed. And it's a good feeling to know that we are considering other options. I know, like you said, Mr. Ryback, we need to do due diligence. We need to do due diligence on both ends. The ad hoc committee proposal is also has a lot of loopholes because there was no demographic report at the time. There is no cost analysis done. So I would urge the administration that this is the time to do these things parallelly. Let's look at the modular option as we're looking into the details of the ad hoc plan. We have the resources to do that. We should this time come up with a solution that passes in a referendum instead of again coming out with a plan that already is being opposed because of the dollar amount that might be added to it. I'm really looking forward to the motion that you will pass, Mr. Tufano, hopefully in the other business like you mentioned, and we will today, my fingers are crossed, take an action in the right direction where we do a due diligence proactively instead of reactively. I want to again stress that I did hear the audio clip in the Finance Committee where there was an indication that if we don't go full steam ahead with the ad hoc committee's proposal, we will not be able to make the deadline for the referendum. I think that's a very threatening way to force our hand to take one direction. I feel like we all need to do our due diligence and then compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Gurpreet Singh, 15 Belmont Court. I'm here to support the recommendation of the ad hoc proposal for an intermediate grade 5-6 school and a limited classroom expansion of the high school. I don't want Monroe to get the same modular units Edison did. Edison modular units are not fire resistant. It would cost them an additional $250,000 to install a sprinkler system just for the 10 classrooms they added. Furthermore, there are leaks in their bathroom and fixtures that they need to upgrade because they will ruin the wooden floors. They have to upgrade the floors to tiles. The hallways in the modular units are too small and could get dangerously overcrowded when classes change. Finally, these modular units do nothing to alleviate the overcrowding in the common areas, including the cafeteria, gym, and media center. By adding modular units at all the schools, eventually the board will need to address the overcrowding in the common areas. Ultimately, this will mean building a new school after having wasted taxpayer money on modular units. Modular units have a lifespan of 20 years, whereas a new school will last decades longer. Installing modular units is like putting a flimsy band-aid on a deep gushing wound. It is a way of kicking the can down the road to a future board that will be asked, why didn't the Board of Education do the right thing when they had the opportunity to do so? We should do the right thing now and build a new intermediate grade 5-6 school as well as a limited expansion of the high school and say no to an ineffectual band-aid alternative of Edison-type modular units that could place our children in potentially flammable classrooms and dangerously overcrowded common areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public?
Prakash Parab, 33 Dana Drive. Again, I want to point out to the public and everyone that in last 5 years, if I look at the page number 3, we have added 455 students all across our districts. So I'm still waiting for demographic review to really understand that we are going to add 1,500 students in next 5 years, which I don't believe in. So coming back to the budget and all, the governor is going to give his budget on February 25th. So we'll be watching that. And the next thing is we have to go and give testimony in Trenton. Okay, that should be the plan. And what has happened, it was pointed out that we are going to get 400,000 more. So last year we got some 5.5 million. So we are going to get around 6 million. According to the formula, we are supposed to get 8.5 million. So we have to, as Mr. Gorski pointed out, it was 10 years back what we got getting less than that. So we have to fight for that. And we have to get funding for special education. They should pass those bills. Now coming to the modular construction, safety of the children is very important, I know that. So we have to, there are modular constructions, people are misunderstanding. The quality of the good quality modular construction we can get. What happens? They are fast. If it takes about 2.5 years, 3 years to build a brick and mortar school, modular can be built within 10 to 12 months. So we don't need all these trailers coming up and money spent, okay? Then new school operation cost. So there are plans going on in the district. I went to BGT. They're thinking of pulling 6th grade down and spreading all over so the cafeterias are not crowded, hallways are not crowded. I have gone and seen the modular. The hallways are wide open, They are wide open. So please, what I do request is, we are not saying that modular should be in a referendum. The main goal I'm looking at, how we can pass this referendum. If you put a referendum of $57 million on golf course, I'll bet you the public, I'm ready to vote, but the public will not vote for it. So give an idea, let them do the cost evaluation, come up with the recommendation to the BOE, plan A and B, pass the motion today, and let the elected BOE member decide and what is the best. So that is my request. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Okay.
George Gunkelman, 5 Kelly Court, Monroe. One comment, when referring to agendas that are from the committees, don't refer to them by number without telling us what the number is, because it's meaningless to the public. That would just be helpful. Alternatively, publish the agendas with this agenda so we see what those agendas are that are being commented on. In talking about the harassment stuff, I'd like to know what the percentage of incidents that are estimated as going unreported. I think we've all been to school and we know most of them aren't. So talking about 13 items over 16 months, it'd be good to have some kind of a feeling about what the actual character of this situation is, not just the identified cases. The second thing I'd like to ask about is there was an item presented in the one report about bond refunding and listed the amount of help that we had. It would be helpful to us to understand that process. And don't get me wrong, I think it was a significant savings, but what was the cost of these professionals that we hired? Because that comes out of that. And in talking about savings, we should also talk about the costs that we incurred in making those savings. The third item I wanted to ask about is when we talk about increases of 5% per student in the high school, tell us what that number is, not just that it went up 5%. 5% of a low number is not significant. 5% of a big number is. The fourth question that I had is it was stated that revenue to the school is going down. What revenue is going down? My taxes certainly haven't gone down. I don't think anybody else's have. I haven't seen any houses being removed. Maybe the rate of increase has slowed, but we certainly are not shrinking our tax base in residential or commercial. I don't think they're shrinking, so why is revenue down? It just defies understanding when you just throw it out there and say revenue is down. What revenue? From what? The fifth item, and the board president touched on the impacts of some of the decisions in new construction related to parking. I'm curious as to why we are not able to use the facilities, which is a community facility. If there are things going on here at the high school, the administration is not allowing things to go on in the Marasco Center because there's inadequate parking. Well, if you put all your buses in the front lot and you put your portable units in the front yard, it's a self-defining result. You've lost the parking necessary. We all drive by here when there are events and see parking out on the streets on both sides. It needs to be treated more seriously. I can't believe there isn't a better place to park those buses available to us, like behind the school, somewhere where there are cameras on to can watch them, or just anywhere where they're not removing from the community's ability to use the Marasco Center, which was funded by the community because it was supposed to be for the community.
I just want to say some of your questions are going to be addressed. Mr. Gorski will address that in his business administrator's report.
Ravi Cherubu, Food and Bond Court. The gentleman is spot on in terms of the finances. I don't understand as we build more and more houses and we generate more revenue, how costs are not going down. So I think it warrants an explanation. Second thing is I live across the street from the golf course. And in the first referendum, I voted down for the school out there. The reason being, we have these boards out there saying no cranberry trucks. I see trucks all the time out there. There's a lot of traffic, and a 3-lane road on one side becomes a 1-lane road. So a lot of the residents in the community we have no idea what the traffic is going to look like. So a lot of us voted down. So, but the second time, we voted because there was a pressure that we needed a school. So we said, okay, let's go for it, right? So there is going to be a lot of resistance from our community as well as Stratford, right? Third one is, it's kind of surprising that the boiler is 100 years old. Just a few years ago, it went
old, I think.
roughly, right? Just a few years ago, it had to go through asbestos remediation and something like that. And I would imagine that someone would have looked at this situation at the time and had come up with a comprehensive solution. So it was surprising. Enrollment numbers. So last month, I actually echoed this lady's comments that there was a lot of progress from last month to this month. There still seems to be a lot of uncertainty. So last month, there was a question about where did the enrollment numbers come from? What is the basis for that, right? And there was a confusion, not confusion, there were questions around, is there an urgency or not, right? It's still not clear to me if there is really an urgency for us to build schools or not, right? The next thing is, you raised a lot of interesting points which are very, very valid in terms of we should have a very thoughtful approach to building whatever that we need to build that will accommodate a lot of students. What I'm not seeing is really a sense of urgency. We are all looking for a third referendum, and we're all hoping that there's going to be a referendum sometime this year. Last month you mentioned that there could be one in December, but I think a lot of people will agree that referendum in December is not really very productive. Instead, if we have one on the election day in November, we're going to have a lot of turnout, right? And that's going to at least force some people to vote for one way or other or not. So I think if we work towards some sort of timelines in terms of, when are we going to have a decision in terms of what these cost estimates are, what is the next plan of action. You mentioned that it takes about 16 weeks or something like that to get all the permits.
There's about 16 agencies that we have to apply to.
Right.
And they're, they're state agencies. They're in no rush to get, everything they get is an emergency. So, they take their time in it. And so we can't act until we get that back. And that's how it starts, the process, and,
Completely agree with you. I agree with you. All I'm saying is, from our part, if we have a sense of urgency and we say, you know what, by this time we're going to do all these things, A, B, C, then at least we are doing our part in time, right? You cannot control what those agencies will do. That's all I'm saying, right? So, all points to consider for you.
Well,
thank you.
We want to get this started by passing this motion, passing a motion to do this, and giving our administrators the opportunity to do the due diligence and present a factual plan to us, which will answer all our questions.
So for instance, last month, I think there was a proposal to get some cost estimates for the new structure. And I was hoping that there would be some answers in terms of what those estimates are this month. Maybe you guys just maybe missed it, I'm not sure. But that's what I expect.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else from the public?
Mr. Sadamastula, 283 Morning Glory Drive. So I don't agree with people who don't support the modular construction, because my son, he's in trailer from last 3 years in middle school, and he hasn't complained for any safety hazard or something. So I don't agree with people who don't support modular construction. And from the last time I was here in the January meeting, I was asking the board, what are the timelines for the board to have a referendum in November? Because in November, as the gentleman explained, that it will have maximum voter turnout. So I urge the board to do their best to have a referendum which passes in November. We already have 2 failed referendums, and I'm in this town from last 4 years. And I know that the board is working hard, but I don't see a referendum which will pass in this town. So I want to see that and hope the board will do its best to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Not seeing, yes? Okay. Just made it under the gun.
Yes. Hi, Neha Desai, 3 Forest Park Terrace.
Just talk into the
sure.
mic.
Sorry about that. I'll say it again. Neha Desai, 3 Forest Park Terrace. I went through the Monroe Township school system, starting from elementary school all the way through high school. My graduating class in high school was 102. I've been back in Monroe in 2014. And from what I saw, trees are now houses. And I know that the last two referendums have failed. I understand that. But it's gotten to a point where at the rate that we are growing houses, our classrooms, even with the modular, it's not going to accommodate. We are overcrowding even at this rate. So something has to be done. Basically, in a nutshell, a new school is needed. You know, it's not enough to just put a trailer in one corner and say, okay. And also on top of that, I have a son in the school, and I don't want to know that he's going into a trailer that could potentially go up in flames. No. You know, the fact that he's in brick and mortar is more satisfying than being in a wooden hall. And that's it. I actually really am proposing that you guys support the ad hoc for the 5th to 6th grade school. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else from the public? Okay, I see you. Take your time, it's okay.
Hi, Deborah Palella, 15 Louise Lane. I just had a question. I think I missed it somewhere along the line, and I don't know who is answering this question, but where is this repeated comment coming that these are modular buildings, that there are, I think, almost 500,000 of them across our country? Where is it coming up that they are fire starters, that they are going to implode? It sounds like they're going to explode spontaneously. I would just like to know where that is. Is it a fact somewhere? Is it research that's been done? I am just sitting in the back confused because I've heard it before, and I would just like to know. I really don't think that anyone here sitting here would ever put our children in harm's way in a fire-inducing building. So I don't think that's what the case is. So if you could please explain that to me and the public, it would be greatly appreciated, because I think it's a rumor, and I would like to know if it is, for it to be stopped.
Well, let me start
Thank
helping
you.
a little bit. One of the things that you could do, I think all of us here have done, is you could simply go on the internet, look up modular units, and you'll see varying reports and substantiated things, and you could take that where it's at. But what I'm going to say is, we need to do our due diligence and look into all these things, because we owe it to the public. We have board members that are supporting it. We have some board members that are, prefer a brick and mortar building. But for me, as an individual, I want to give all this to our administration. They know they know the areas of need, and let them come up with a plan for us to then dissect and deliberate on, and see what's best for this school system, kids, educational, safety, take it all into effect. But to start with, all this information you can look at on the web and get all the information you want.
I think that maybe some people are looking at one angle and one are looking at the other, when I think all the information's there. And to be fair, unfortunately, homes also in our town go up in smoke, which are brick and mortar homes as well, in newly built construction. So I just want to make the statement that I think that I'm happy that you're saying you'll look into it and do the due diligence, and it's appreciated.
Okay,
Thank you.
Anybody else from the public? Okay, not seeing anyone. We can now go to the Assistant Superintendent's report. Dr. Lehman?
So just a few highlights from the past month since we were here last, starting with a recent event. This past Saturday, February 15th, Monroe Township High School robotics team hosted the VRC Tower Takeover. It's a robotics competition that students from the middle school and the high school competed in against about 26 other teams. I think at some point it was 30 teams. It's an all-day event that began early in the morning, about 9 o'clock, concluded about 5 o'clock with an awards assembly. And the Rutgers University robotics students served as referees and scorekeepers. Monroe Township High School student volunteers reset the arenas. There were 3 different robotics arenas. There was a skills challenge and then 2 head-to-head areas where they competed against each other. The Monroe Township High School robotics team made it to the round of 16 and finished 12th overall. So it's a program that's continuing to grow for us, and this was an event that we hosted about 7 or 8 years ago, and it's the first time since then, and we're really excited to welcome the visiting schools and host that competition. Back on January 30th, the Monroe Township High School Unified hosted their 3rd annual Falcons Palette. It was an evening event, a parent-teen social, in which the high school senior unified students, who are National Art Honor Society students, instructed an evening of painting. The unified students and their parents participated. It was an amazing event. The parents painted one side of a picture, the students painted the other side, and when they brought them together, it completed this picture. It was really an awesome event. We did something similar at the elementary level last year, and again, this is their third annual event. And then something happened last week here at the high school. Dr. Higgins, the high school staff and students hosted East Brunswick High School. They had student, staff, and administration come over when we visited earlier in the fall to discuss the ninth grade, moving out of high school and all that information. One thing they asked us in return was, can we come over and check out your block scheduling? We said, absolutely. So they brought their staff over, and students shadowed other students, staff shadowed staff, the administration experienced what the block schedule looked like, because East Brunswick High School is looking to implement a schedule like we have, and we have one of the model schedules in the state. So it's definitely something that, a relationship that we like to kind of continue to foster, and it's a collaborative piece. You know, we like to network and give back. They helped us out in the fall, we helped them out in the spring. So thank you to Dr. Higgins, the students and the staff at the high school for hosting East Brunswick. And that's it.
Thank you. Okay, now we go superintendent's report, recommendations.
Last Friday, on Valentine's Day, the staff had a half-day in-service day in the afternoon. And as part of all of our district goals with the Wellness Committee, we had a staff wellness day. So I want to just thank the committee that worked on this. We had a committee of teachers from each school who developed within their buildings activities for the staff to participate in. It was yoga, it was meditation, some coloring, some cooking, some different activities, some walking. The MTA also did bagels. Staff also had some lunches in there. So it was a wonderful day, and the staff did a fantastic job. They actually coined the term staffentines for the day, and some of our high school art teachers created a logo that was posted in all of our schools. So unfortunately, I wasn't there, but I did hear a lot of great things, and a lot of people shared pictures with me of all of the activities that they had. So I'm glad that it worked out so well, and I know I've had requests that we continue it next year during our professional development also. It's one of the things that we want to do with our staff is we want to give the staff the strategies for wellness and social emotional learning, because then they in turn are better prepared in their classroom, and then they also share those strategies with students. So it really is it was a great collaboration for that day. So with that, I will go to the personnel report. So it's recommended that the board approve the attached personnel items A through AH. By roll call?
Second.
Second, okay. Mr. Washington?
Roll call. Any questions?
Yeah, no. Any questions from the board? Okay.
Mr. Pelori?
Yes.
Mr. Rutsky?
Yes.
Mrs. Koloponowicz?
Yes.
Mrs. Arminio?
Yes.
Mr. Chiarella?
Yes.
Mrs. Siegel?
Yes.
Mrs. DeMayo?
Yes.
Mr. Nicotinsky?
Yes.
Mr. Tefano?
Yes.
Mr. Ryback?
Yes.
Mr. Board President, personnel items A through H has passed unanimously.
Okay, thank you.
And it's recommended that the board approve the previously submitted attached board action items A through N as in Nancy.
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Okay, any questions? Okay, we can vote.
Mr. Chiarella?
Yes.
Mrs. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Pelori?
Yes.
Mr. Tefano?
Yes.
Mr. Rutsky?
Yes.
Mr. Nicotinsky?
Yes.
Mrs. DeMayo?
Yes.
Mrs. Arminio?
Yes.
Thank you. Mrs. Koloponowicz?
Yes.
Mr. Ryback?
Yes.
Mr. Board President, board action items A through N under superintendent's report has passed unanimously.
Thank you, Dr. Alvik.
That concludes my report.
Did I miss, did we ask if anybody had any questions or comments?
I did.
Sorry, went right past me.
Do you have a
Can I
question?
ask a quick one?
Do you have a question? Sure.
Well, I'm curious with what Ms. Koloponowicz reported on earlier with regards to the athletic workers per event. Are those students or staff?
Staff.
Staff people. Okay. And before this, did we not have those positions filled, or we paid less?
We had them, but we hadn't increased the pay, and I think Mr. Byer said 14 years. So he went out and got a lot of information from other districts of what staff were making in other districts, and so this was presented to personnel.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, a business administrator's report?
Thank you, Mr. Ryback.
Sure.
With regard to Mr. Gunkelman's comments that I wrote down, and if there's anything else that I missed, feel free to refresh my memory. The first item was the bond refunding costs. So I want to talk a little bit about that transaction as it's now concluded. The only thing we're waiting for is the actual closing with the attorney, but it's all done. The bonds are sold and priced, and everything is completed. As Mr. Rutsky reported, we refunded bonds from the 2012 series totaling $34,365,000, bonds from the 2015 series totaling $41,770,000. That's a total of $85,785,000 of bonds that we called back. A callable bond is a bond instrument that has a call date allowing the issuer to bring the bond back if we could refund it at a cheaper interest rate. Not all of the bond call dates have occurred yet, so we set up what is known as an escrow account, where we borrowed at today's interest rates with new bonds, put the money in an escrow account waiting for the call dates on those bonds where the call date hasn't arrived yet. That will happen over the next 3 to 5 years. The total savings from this bond refunding, as I reported to Finance Committee, is $6,426,507. These are actual dollars that you would be paying in interest costs had the refunding not occurred. That is $357,028 on average per year of savings off of the debt service levy, as I've reported before. This savings is not all up front. This is as the bonds come due. The whole bond maturity schedule in this district goes out over 20 years. So it's a net present value savings of 6.37%. In total now, the district has refunded and saved over $14.1 million of interest costs. This is my fourth refunding that we've done. We've saved $14.1 million of interest that you already agreed to when you passed the referendums previously and sold the bonds, because we called them back and refunded them at lower rates. This was another opportunity that came around. Disclosed all of this information to the board. They passed this resolution unanimously to refund this, and we went ahead and executed this. As you would expect, there are costs with this transaction, costs that cannot be done internally by the professionals in my office. Some of those professionals involved in this are the municipal bond advisor. That's a specialty in the legal area that just deals with bond financing and interest rates, and it's an extremely complex specialty. The approximate fee for that professional was about $47,000. I beg your pardon, the municipal advisor, the bond counselor was $99,000. That's the bond counselor. The municipal advisor, that is the financial advisor who makes recommendations about when to sell the bonds, the type of escrow account to set up, the type of investments to put in there, was $47,000 approximately. Then there are other fees. There is an auditor, there's a verification agent, there's an escrow agent, there's Standard & Poor's rating company, there's the printing of the actual bond certificates, and other miscellaneous expenses, causing this category total to be approximately $250,000. So that's the direct professionals. The majority of the fees come from the underwriter. The underwriter is the person that initially takes the bonds to market and makes the initial sale of the bonds. Their fee is approximately $332,000. The underwriter's counsel fee is $47,000. So the total fees for this transaction cost $575,000 approximately. Now, you get what you pay for when it comes to professional fees. Through the recommendation of our bond counselor, our financial advisor, when we went out to price the bonds that totaled over $85 million, it's a market condition that determines the price of the bonds. How much are Monroe's bonds worth? Well, As we mentioned before, we have a very fine audit history here, which is integral into determining the bond quality. They could be trusted. The Standard & Poor's report gave us an A minus rating, which is top quality. It's among the highest you can have as a school district. So we felt pretty comfortable that our bonds could be priced aggressively. There's also a shortage of high-quality municipal debt in the marketplace. A lot of this stuff is on government balance sheets and otherwise absorbed, and there's not a lot of inventory available. So we took advantage of that. And while I was on bereavement leave, Mrs. Allen worked with our financial advisor, and we pushed the envelope on pricing the bonds. By doing so, we recognized another $600,000 of interest rate savings because of the strong demand and the high price that we commanded on those bonds. We also purchased treasury investments for investment within our escrow account that's waiting for the callable bonds to come due to offset the debt service that we would be paying on those bonds. That saved another $70,000. So you could certainly argue that $670,000 between the two savings of aggressive pricing on the bonds and the treasury instruments in the escrow account, which were recommendations from the financial advisor and bond counselor, more than offset all of the fees involved, half of which came from the underwriter directly. I have a full list of the expenses involved, and I'd be happy to share those with you. All you got to do is give me a call or an email. I'll send you the whole exact list. So this was a very successful transaction. It took some of the burden off of the taxpayers' back. The savings for these interest costs cannot be transferred, unfortunately, to the general fund where they could be used to balance the budget, for example, because they must be returned to the taxpayers through the debt service levy. So all this will do is reduce the debt service levy that otherwise you would have to raise in the future by, again, $357,000 a year and a total of $6.4 million. There was another question having to do with the budget being over cap and some misunderstanding about revenues decreasing. Today, Dr. Alvik, Dr. Lehman, Laura Allen, and I worked on the budget almost the duration of the entire day by making some modifications to newly proposed items only and making some better estimates that are coming more closely into focus now. We were able to get the overage from $3.7 million to approximately $2.8 million over cap. That is currently where we are, subsequent to the Finance Committee meeting that we reported to previously. So we are making progress. We started off at $6.4 million over cap. We are now down to $2.8. There's a lot of pent-up demand in this district. There's a lot of needs for staffing. We have about $500,000 for new trailers in the budget. Staff salary increases are also estimated. Health insurance on a $26 million health insurance account is significant, especially when the proposal we currently have is 8.4%. So those are some of the reasons why we're over cap. But you have to look at the revenue side of this also to see the other part of this equation. Yes, the tax levy can go up 2%. That's that Christie plan that came out in 2010, capping municipal entities to a 2% tax levy increase every year in the general fund. There are some adjustments, and in Monroe's case, we were successful in the past, increasing that 2% to maybe 2.25%, 2.5%, 2.75%. But it's a very lean increase to the budget. We also have a significant part of our revenues carried over from previous budgets where this administration has done a fine job minimizing appropriations below what was budgeted through cost savings or maximizing revenues beyond what was budgeted through new initiatives like Falcon Care and ECE. The excess of revenues plus the reduction in appropriation spending get combined into what's called excess surplus. Unfortunately, last year, due to the effects of growth, labor agreements, and other reasons, including the security vestibules that our students and staff enjoy through the schools, this district drew down on that surplus and reduced it by $1.7 million. So that is a revenue source that is carrying over $1.7 million less in this year's budget for 2021 than it was available last year. So it is a starting point of $1.7 million less with revenues than last year because of the depletion of surplus. So when you net the depletion of surplus with the increase in the tax levy, the increase in tuition that Jamesburg is volunteering this year, you come up with revenues that have only grown by about $2 million. You calculate 8.4% on a $26 million health insurance account, you can see how easily that money is consumed. That is one of the reasons why we're over cap and we're working so hard to go through and reduce some of the new appropriations. But I will be completely forthright. It does appear that we're going to have to, again, look at the list that we will produce for you of non-mandated programs and services. We will identify the ones that the administration feels are of the least value. This generally comes from the superintendent and the assistant superintendent, as they directly come from the classrooms and services provided to the students. Over the years, we haven't had to go into these expenditures because administrative costs, reduction of supervisory positions, director positions, and others have absorbed the burden. There is no more fat left on the bone. At this point, some program restructuring appears to be coming, and we will be completely forthright about this at the Finance Committee meetings, and ultimately, it's the board's decision what you want to cut, as it was previously. So I hope that explains a little bit about the revenues. It is a very complex thing to understand, and I would be more than delighted to take any call from anybody or any email on this topic and satisfy any lingering questions that remain. So, Mr. Board President and members of the Monroe Township Board of Education, it is recommended that board action items A through M be approved by consent roll call.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any questions?
Can I say something?
Sure.
I would be remiss not to say thank you to the Encore Monroe Condo Association for the donation of $350,000 to be utilized for the high school performing arts department. $350, excuse me.
That would be nice.
I'm wishing we had such a donation. But $350 is very generous also. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Chiarella, I see your hand up.
Yes, I was going to say the same thing to the Encore Monroe Condo Association. And that donation is going to the high school performing arts department. The other question that I have, though, is just on G. It's a contract renewal for random drug testing. I was just wondering how that works. It says there's a mobile testing unit, so I was wondering how that's set up and or what.
Yes. Doctor, you want me to take that?
Yes.
The federal requirements and the state requirements to operate a transportation fleet require random drug testing of drivers that are delivering students. So this outfit comes in at schedules that they determine to be random and select operators of our vehicles that deliver students at random and conduct blood testing and drug testing results on these drivers periodically. You may see the large vans come in the administrative parking lots every now and then where a driver will be called in to have the testing performed. We're very pleased to say that the testing in the highest majority of cases comes out fine and the drivers continue on with their duties. We also have the right to send staff for testing to these agencies, but predominantly it's for the driving staff.
Thank you. I was just I misunderstood. I thought there was going to be a unit set up somewhere and that we would direct people, drivers to the unit. But I understand. Thank you.
Ms. Arminio?
Yes, I don't know if it's still, this is my Friday agenda, so I don't know if it's changed, but on L, Panorama Education, we have a contract with them. Could you explain what that is? And then I have some questions about the actual contract.
Sure.
And have we had that before?
Yes, the Panorama Education is the social emotional learning survey that we're giving to students. We started it last year and we kind of piloted it last spring, and that's why we're short going through the end of the school year. So we had to do this short contract to get us on target with the budget.
Okay,
So that's why it's only a few months long.
Okay, but can you say what it entails?
Sure. It's the social emotional learning survey that we give to our students. So all students in grades 4 through 12 take this survey. It takes them about 15 to 20 minutes, depending on the age level, because they have to go through it. It's on the computer. But what we're really paying for is not so much to get that data back, although that's helpful to us, but it also offers resources that we then share out with our administrators, who then share it out with their staff on addressing any of these social emotional issues.
What are the questions, what are some?
I'm
an
able
example of
to,
the questions?
and I'm just going off
Yes.
off the top of my head, because it's also age appropriate. They're two different surveys, one for the younger students and one for the older students. Things like, we tested in 6 different areas, or surveyed in 6 different areas. I'm able to do my homework without any help. I'm able to solve a problem without any help. I don't have, I get along with all of my friends. I'm able to work through a problem. And then it's a Likert scale of, a very, very agree, or whatever the 5 steps are.
Are the parents aware of this survey?
Yes.
So do they have sample questions? They know what the kids will be answering?
If anybody reached out to the building principals, they could give them a sample of it, absolutely. One of the things we're also looking at with Panorama, but Panorama's not there yet with it, is possibly having a parent report that we could send out at the end of the school year, but Panorama has not right now, it would take a lot of work for us to do that, to get that out to every single parent, but that's something that they're working toward, that we would be able to share that information out with parents also.
And I read through this briefly, and I guess I need some confidence here. On the terms and conditions of the contract, on page 3, there's data security programs, data security, and Panorama will implement and maintain reasonable administrative, physical, and technical safeguards. And then on another paragraph, it was the confidentiality on page 4, it just seemed a little less secure than I would have wanted. They're talking about reasonable ability to keep confidentiality. So it doesn't seem like a firm, strong confidentiality agreement here. So I don't know, maybe we need to look at this again.
Well, I can kind of address a little bit of that. One is, Mary Smith has reviewed the contract. She reviews all of our contracts before we sign them, so
And
that's one piece.
Mary Smith is our attorney, just to let everybody know that.
Oh, yeah, Mary Smith, our board attorney. The other piece is, we don't use any company that is not, that has not pledged to the student data privacy pledge. And that's something that our educational technology facilitator looks at with any company that we use technology for. They have to have that pledge for us to even consider them in our district.
I understand that they pledge to do it, but a lot of the language in here just talks about reasonable, just like it would be reasonable. So maybe they won't, notwithstanding any provision, either party may disclose. All right, I'm not going to read the whole thing. I just thought that it was a little nebulous, that there's not a solid core of like lockdown confidentiality in this. That's my only comment about this. All right.
Mr. Plur?
A couple of questions on item A, 7th bullet. It talks about Brinkerhoff Environmental Services. I looked at the hourly rate, and this is for the next 6 months, I believe, right? The contract is. So my question really is there a specific work item that's geared for this firm to do, or is this generally a renewal of their existing contract as a standby on-call?
Mr. Chair, Brinkerhoff services are expected to be utilized as part of the limited design study that has been previously authorized by the board to study the potential referenda projects that are on the table.
Thank
you. So that's part of the language that the board previously approved with the limited design study.
So there's a potential task waiting for them to do.
Just for full disclosure and delineation, we want everybody to know which firms are particularly involved.
Okay.
So it may be redundant to put it in the report. We probably didn't have to, but for full disclosure, that's who's part of that limited design.
The second question I have is item numbers I and J. I didn't quite understand this, maybe because I was not involved. Somerset County Educational Services Commission we're paying for, and Sussex County as well, regional. What exactly are the services that we're utilizing from them? HIJ?
I is utilization of an Ed Service Commission. An Ed Service Commission is run by the county for school districts to participate in. Ed Service Commissions go out to bid for contracted transportation services and allow all the school districts to participate in the bid without having to do it ourselves at all those costs that we would have to incur separately. J is a cost savings initiative here called a jointure. A jointure is where our transportation director aggressively reaches out to other school districts to see if we have any routes that are similar in geographic location, so that we can share students on buses instead of each of us running a bus through the same general area.
But the Sussex County.
It saves fees.
Why would we have a common routes?
I can't answer specifically what it is
Okay,
in Sussex,
all right.
but I can tell you Mrs. McDonald is very aggressive in trying to save monies there.
At some point. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? I guess we can vote.
Okay, Mr. Rutsky,
Yes.
Mrs. DeMayo,
Yes.
Mrs. Arminio,
Yes, except I'll abstain on L.
so
That's the
noted.
Panorama Education.
Beg your pardon?
I just was saying what it was, Panorama Education
So noted.
contract.
Mr. Peluri,
Yes.
Mrs. Siegel,
Yes.
Mr. Chiarella,
Yes.
Mrs. Kolpanowicz,
Yes.
Mr. Tefano,
Yes.
Mr. Nicotinsky,
Yes.
Mr. Ryback.
Yes.
Board President, Business Administrator Report, Board Action Items A through M has passed
Okay, thank you.
unanimously with one abstention on L. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gorski. Now we can move to the Board President's report. On January 14th, the Strategic Action Planning Committee had its first meeting and cooperatively listed the strengths, achievements, and challenges of our district. It was a very successful session. The next meeting will be on Monday, February 24th, 7 o'clock at the high school, and it will focus on creating a common vision. That's what we're trying to do. I'm just going to recap a little of what you've heard now financially. As of this moment, our district is $2.8 million over cap. Thank you all, administrators, for bringing that down from 3.7. It's a lot of money. We got a long way to go yet. Our central office administrators are working hard to reduce this. However, it looks like cuts are a reality. We have contract negotiations and facility needs that are just two key items that must be dealt with as well. We'll know more specifically as the budget process continues. Next month, we have the preliminary budget. We intend to notify the public of any recommended cuts with enough notice. I know that came up, and we certainly want to accommodate the public if, for example, courtesy busing is a possibility, and also there will be no capital projects. So let's hope that we can do as much as we can to prevent these cuts and prevent cutting of courtesy busing. That's all going to play out. Okay, other Board of Education business. Mr. Tufano.
I'd like to make a motion, please.
Sure.
As recommended by the Building, Grounds, and Transportation Committee, I make a motion to authorize the district administration to engage in a limited design study for Plan B for potential referendum project. Subject to further deliberations and considerations from the full Board of Education, this Plan B would be in addition to the limited design study that the BOE approved following the ad hoc committee proposal and acceptable by the board. Upon deliberation of the Buildings and Grounds and Transportations Committee, it is recommended that exploring an alternate plan would ensure the district does its due diligence to put forth the most fiscally responsible and safest option to address the student growth in Monroe Township. The Buildings, Grounds, and Transportation Committee is recommending that the administration request a copy of the traffic study conducted by the Township of Monroe to fully understand the safety concerns of the corner of Applegarth and Cranberry Station Road. The Buildings, Ground, and Transportation Committee also recommends that the administration obtain the demographer's report prior to making its final recommendation to the Buildings, Grounds, and Transportation Committee for deliberation and ultimately to full board for deliberation and consideration. Plan B shall include, but not limited to, restructuring the middle school to a grade 7 and 8th grade school by bringing grade 6 back into the elementary school. 2, explore the need for modular additions to elementary schools if needed based on enrollment projections. And 3, to construct a permanent modular addition to the high school that will address the enrollment needs and projected growth.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Tefano, seconded by Mr. Chiarella.
I think it was moved by Mr. Chiarella. Did you move it? Who seconded?
Yes.
Ms.
Mr.
Omini?
Chiarella, no, Mr. Chiarella seconded.
You seconded it, Mr. Chiarella?
I did.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Tefano, any questions? Ms. Kalapanowicz?
I believe the Buildings, Grounds, and Transportation Committee received a copy of the motion that was going to be read today, and what Mr. Tefano read was not what we received yesterday, so what is the discrepancy? And if there was a change, why did not the committee receive it?
What, did you change what was,
Did I change it?
somebody, it was different.
I did.
It's
I
very
was-
different.
It wasn't the
Okay,
same
so I
one that we
was,
received.
I was presented with that, and I didn't accept it, and I wanted a new one written, the way I wanted it written.
Okay.
Because it's my motion. And
only
Mr.
asked you if you
Gorski
changed it, so you're
was
answering.
kind enough to help me out with that today, and we took care of it.
Why did not the committee receive a copy of it so that we could look at it beforehand?
I don't know. I have no idea.
I have a question.
Mr. Mayor.
So that motion is completely different than what came out of the Buildings and Ground Committee.
Okay.
So what the Buildings and Ground agreed upon is not what you just read.
It is exactly what
It is exactly what he read.
Well, I got the Buildings and Ground resolution.
Well, I didn't write that resolution, somebody else
But
did.
this is what came out of the committee meeting
No,
and
it's
went
not.
to all the committee
I
members.
wrote what came out of the committee. It's right here. That's exactly what we wanted. All of us agreed on it.
If I remember correctly, Mr. Tufano, we asked, the administration said they would create a motion, and we said, yes, you can create a motion.
Yep.
They created the motion that was passed out, and now, I just want to make sure we got it straight. and
Who
then you
created the
changed it.
motion that was passed out?
The administration.
And was sent to the Buildings and
It
Grounds
was sent to
Committee.
Buildings and Grounds, and then you changed it. I'm just want to find out, and then you changed it.
Yeah, this
Because
is the
that
motion
doesn't
that I'm putting
include the
forth.
the ad hoc committee proposal, which we have an obligation to the community to
We
also
already approved
research.
that. We already approved that research. We already passed that motion last meeting. That's also going to be looked into.
So there is a Plan A. This is a Plan B. Shutting down Applegarth would be a Plan C.
Nobody,
And somebody else could come up with, no, hold on, let me finish.
Yeah.
Somebody else would come up with a Plan D. I just want to understand, what are we trying to do here? What are we trying to achieve here? I understand the need for modular, which we can look at. I mean, in my other board business, I'll share some of the research I have done on it. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's not necessarily a great thing. We can discuss it. But, so we're entertaining the second one. I'm not saying no to this or anything, but I just want to understand this. What would another plan do to the schedule of the overall? We heard a couple of residents come up and talk about the timeframe. Would adding a Plan B would not allow us to go to the public for a referendum soon? Yes, I completely agree that we got to exhaust all the options to make sure that the public is in support. I'm for it. Can somebody answer those questions for me?
Oh, those questions were all answered at the BG&T meeting that you missed.
Yeah, you know,
The
Peter,
time frame.
Really,
I can
Peter.
answer that question. The
Peter,
time
Peter.
frame will make no difference
The
because.
question is addressed towards the president.
Yeah, I'm the
And-
BG&T committee
No, please.
chair, and
please.
I'd like to answer
Pete,
that question.
Pete, hold on.
Because you weren't there, so I can answer it
Pete,
to
hold
you.
on, please. Me not being there at one meeting is not the subject of
Well, you
discussion
know the
here.
answer to that question.
No, I don't. I honestly don't.
All right, why don't we do this? Let me respond, and
Please.
then, Mr. Tufano, you
Yeah, go ahead.
can come in right after me. It did come up because we can't keep dragging this out, you know, and I said this publicly, the kids are coming, there's a need for more space. We need to have determined what's the best route, and I said this before, there's almost half the board is very interested in modular units. The other half of the board seems to want, a building, maybe with some modular units. We hear the same types of things from the public. So it's up to our administrators. They're the experts. They have to take this and figure out what will work best with a plan A, plan B. They could take it, they could change it, because they may say, for example, well, we need a building, or maybe we don't need a building. Maybe, we can get by with the modular. But we won't know this. We can argue this all year. We won't know this until they come up with the answer. I feel we need to give them, the ability to do this. Right now, again, all we have is suggestions. We don't have a plan until they develop one. And then we can start questioning it and stuff. As far as when the referendum, I'm hoping for a referendum in December. And I believe that is a possibility. You never know where delays come in or whatever, but hoping for December. So, I don't know, Mr. Tufano.
Mr. President, and Pete Tufano, this is not about an argument.
No.
I think as a community, we all got to come together to find a solution.
Exactly.
And if there's got to be a plan B.
I just want to get I want to get an answer. That's all I
understand.
want.
So if there's got to be a plan B, I think we need to make sure that we're acknowledging it. I have no issue with it. My biggest concern is that members who are using the social media to propagate already send messages out to the public saying that this is going to be cheaper, this is going to be much faster, without fully venting all these things, and people are beginning to believe that. And the same thing with fire hazardness and things like that. It's no different than a trailer. Trailer is just as susceptible to fire as anything else. One of the things that we noticed, I took like 2 pages of notes when we went to Edison. There's a lot of positives with the modular construction. And I acknowledge that. And they're all having some issues too. One of the best conversations that I had as I was walking out was a janitor stopped me on the way to say that you're not going to get a full picture from him because if Monroe is...
Him meaning facilities director?
The facilities individual. They said that if Monroe decides to get a modular unit, make sure that the modular unit is not residential. It's either commercial or industrial level. They're having issues with their doors and windows and in terms of there's no gas directly going in there, so there's some heating issues and things like that. It's not outside of the realm of possibilities that we could do modular with all those things addressed. I mean, if some of you in the residents who are sitting here probably know that Luigi's is one of the Italian restaurants we have on Spotswood Englishtown Road. The roof just came down because of the weight of the snow on top of it. We don't want things like that to happen, and that happens because it's only a wooden frame. But we can get modular, not wooden. We can do that with metal, fiberglass, fiberglass and things like that. I have been doing a lot of research. Folks, I'll tell you this, from my perspective, there is no clear-cut answer on whether this is better or worse. There are people who had experiences on both sides. It really comes down to somebody sitting down and looking at the specifications, because when you go to modular, you need to look at the designs and specifications very carefully, and then you need to cost it out. If that's what we're trying to do, I'm all for it.
That's what I would expect from our administration. We know that we have to do upgrades over what we saw. We know that. The question is, what will the final cost be? And that's what we have to find these things out. Ms. Armenia.
President Ryback, from what I hear, that resolution is an exploratory resolution, which I am in favor of. And you keep saying that the administration, but in the last few weeks, we've been told as a board, we have to task the administration with the things that we are looking for. So that's all I see this resolution as, a task. I mean, we can't have it both ways. You can't tell us and the public that, well, the administration was never asked to do any research on modulars, for example, and then say, well, we have to wait for the administration to bring it to us. So you can't have it both ways.
No, we have to pass a motion to allow them to do that.
So that's what this is, it seems to me, an exploratory. And I want to make it very clear in and some of my colleagues on the board, either for or against, it's not only modular, only brick and mortar. My preference is a brick and mortar building, My preference is maybe more than one. My reality is that we have failed to pass 2 brick and mortar referendums. So I'm trying to say to my community, look, I am willing to explore something not so fragile and costly as a rental of trailers. For 20 years, I've been opposed to trailers. But maybe something in the middle that will be of substance, and certainly with all of the safety features we can muster. But if it gives us space, yes, and the trailers aren't giving us cafeteria space, and the trailers aren't giving us any more space in the schools that exist in the hallways. So what I'm saying is, if we're thinking of trailers that don't belong to us, let us broaden our exposure to information. For goodness sakes, we're an educational organization. Let us be educated about what our potential is or what our options are. That's all. Why are we discussing that it's you against them? It's not. It's
No.
a broadening
It shouldn't
of
be two
our
sides, absolutely.
options. That's all I'm asking.
I couldn't agree more. It's a we, all of
Right.
us. And we should all be on the same page here. And you're right, we need to investigate this. Ms. Chiarella?
Yes, thank you. What I'd like to know is what our real objective is, right? So if our objective is to get a referendum that will pass, where our voters will say, we could buy in and we want to pass this, then I think we have to explore all options, and Mr. Tufano's motion then is important. If our objective is just to fail a couple of these referendums and then override the will of the people and go to the state, then let's say that to the people. Let's be honest with them and tell them that that's what we want to do, that your vote really doesn't matter, but we have to go through the motions here. But at the end of the day, we're going to get what we want, and it's going to be a school on the golf land, and it's going to be XYZ. Let's just be honest with them. So I would say we should vote for this and explore all options if we're being responsible and serious about the will of the people.
Well, I certainly want to agree. We have to be responsible. Nobody's trying to, I think getting the citizens to pass a referendum is preferable, and I don't think anyone on this board would disagree with that. Ken, I think you're absolutely right. Nobody wants to go to the state and say, all right, now force them to do it. We want the voters to vote yes on this. That's what we want to do.
The referendum that I got that came out of the BG&G includes the modulars, but it also includes the brick and mortar schools. So I think it includes everything that we want to look at, which I think is the way we need to go.
But we passed the brick and mortar ad hoc recommendation at the last meeting. That's being looked at. This is a Plan B that doesn't look at brick and mortar and looks at the.
But this also says the modulars too.
This just I don't know which copy you have, but I didn't get a copy of your committee meeting.
The one I got had
resolution,
been
but-
sent from the administration.
So this was supposed to be done away with, and then my new one was supposed to be sent to you. That's Mr. Gorski that does that.
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
Speaking of responsibility, I want to take responsibility for the resolution. I sent Mr. Tufano a draft, which the administration and I believed was the substance of the BGT. Mr. Tufano rightly made some modifications. This is a Plan B in addition to what was previously approved, correct, Mr. Tufano? And because this was only constructed late this afternoon, it did not have an opportunity to get out to the full board. I apologize for that.
But in this explains, this motion puts forth everything that we discussed in the BG&T meeting, and it absolutely addresses concerns of the public that wanted a option of a cheaper solution that they could afford.
Mr. President, may I say something? I know the conversation went off a little bit about me not attending the Building, Grounds, and Transportation, but there are meetings that people don't attend, and I'm not going to discuss it right now.
Listen, you volunteer, we all volunteer.
The
You
biggest,
can't be at
no,
every
but
meeting.
the problem is that it's one meeting out of the BGNT meeting in a year and a half. I think the point that Jill made is important. I think the biggest difference between the two.
Sorry.
Because I know public is sitting here patiently, so we need to get to this quickly. The biggest difference between the two motions is the item 1A, which is to construct a grade A at grade 6 intermediate school using state model on the board's property located at 254 Applegarth Road, Monroe Township, New Jersey, and more particularly described as Lot 14.01 and 16 in Block 25 on the official tax map of the township. Now, is it true that we actually...
Beg your pardon, we're working on some technical issues.
What you're reading right now was actually approved by the board at the last board meeting. That first part, that A.
Okay.
That was approved by the board at the last board meeting. So we're already working on that.
Yes.
Okay. So it is already being looked at, so it doesn't have to be a part of this? Okay.
Yeah, we're already working on that based
why are
on
we
the
wasting our
last.
time?
That's why I rejected that when it was sent to me.
But we didn't get it ahead of time to read it. I
Right.
mean, I'm not comfortable.
Well, then vote no.
I'm telling you I
Mrs.
am.
Kalapalo.
First of all, I agree that we should be looking at a Plan B, because I think it's important to get everything out on the table so that we can make some kind of a decision in the next couple of months or so that we can have a referendum in December. We can't wait till after December. At the last month in January, it was my belief that we accepted the report from the ad hoc committee, and we asked to look at, the Plan A. But it is my interpretation from the Buildings, Grounds, and Transportation meeting that we were going to have a resolution that included looking at both Plan A and Plan B. And I think it's important to still have in that resolution Plan A and Plan B. So to do a limited design study for both of them. And that's my interpretation, and that's why.
We approved
I-
A last month.
Plan A was already approved in
I know,
January.
but I
Now
think
this
it's
is to approve
important.
Plan B. So we
It
can
it
vote
was,
both
it was approved last month, so that would work. Let me say something. I'm just looking at this now. I thank Dr. Alva for giving it to me, because I didn't see it until you read it. I'm going to say this to everybody. It does say Plan B shall include but not limited to. So I think that's important for us to understand. I could support that because it says this. And I really don't want to, not support, as part of the BG&T committee, I said I'd be in favor of it. But I was concerned when you made that change the first time I heard it. But I think the fact that it says Plan B shall include but not be limited to certainly alleviates some of my concerns, and I could see that now.
If it's possible for us to do the referendum in December, right, if we move quickly,
Yeah, we have to, yeah.
why can't we do it in November?
I don't think we can have that information. I spoke to Jerry Tague on that. I don't think we can have all the information done to have it in November. Hey, we'd love to. It's just, I don't think it can be done.
I asked at the
You want me to
January-
be honest? You're not honest, it is. That's an honest answer.
Ken, I asked for this in January, and I'm hoping that at some point we'll get that to work backwards from December to see if there is a float in the CPM critical path method to see if we can gain a month somewhere. I completely agree with everybody who came to the podium and said November is better. We're going to push for it. But it goes back to my original question, adding this Plan B, would it impact the schedule for December? And I'm hoping it's not.
You want me to answer that?
Yeah, sure.
It will require administration working 24 hours a day to get all of the paperwork and all of the plans and all of the studies, everything done by a June. We would have to submit a referendum to the state by June. That's the deadline here, in order to get a December referendum. In order for us to get to a plan, A or B, by June, it's going to take a lot of work on our part, which is why it's designs, it's working with architects, it's working with engineers, and then putting it out and finding out what the cost would be. So there's a lot of pieces that go into that for us to hopefully have and I'm saying hopefully because we're gonna do our best, to have these options to the board before June so that you can see what both options are. And then from there, we would submit one to the DOE for a referendum in June. For the December referendum. So yes, it's possible.
Right.
It's going to be a challenge.
I completely agree with the sentiment. People are saying that we don't want to rush this, and I 100% agree, especially if it's going to fail. And I echo your sentiment, Mr. President, that nobody on the board wants to see the next referendum fail, and hopefully the public feels the same way. So my question is, which I forgot by now.
I thought I was the only one that forgot.
No, I'm getting to that age too. is for us to approve, to get the option to the DOE in June is what you're saying. It needs to be approved by the board prior to that.
Yes.
So it has to be approved by board in May? I'm doing my own schedule, working
No, I
backwards.
think if we take it to the board in June, at the June board meeting, and get it approved at that June board meeting, we have June to submit.
Okay, so you have
There's a
March, April,
June-
May,
I don't
June.
remember what the date is.
Four
March, April,
months.
and May. Yeah, 3.5, yeah.
3.5 months to do that. Okay.
But you have the same deadline for the brick and mortar school.
Yes, we would be doing both of these at the same time.
Thank you.
Ms. Arminio?
Yes, President Ryback, it seems to me that Plan A, it just needs a scale down. Is that what we're talking about? I mean, it seems that we already know what Plan A is. It's been sort of been thrown around for years, and now the ad hoc committee made adjustments to it, but it seems that it should be easier, and the modulars, as I understand it, might not be that complicated in order to do it. So, I mean, I think, and I appreciate the fact that you'll be working very hard, but the taxpayers are working very hard also, and our students are working and our teachers under, tough circumstances. So I think if we all pull together, and if we have to, I would recommend having a special meeting, either May or June, to get this, and just have this meeting solely for that purpose. So we don't have to take an hour or two on presentations, things like that. Just bring the public in, let them know what's going on, and then, vote, for goodness sakes. That would be, I hope.
Well, let's see what happens.
Okay.
I think we can't make that decision until we
Right.
know they're ready
No,
for it.
let's work on it.
Okay, any other questions, concerns? I guess we could then vote.
Yes. This is Mr. Tefano's resolution, moved by Mr. Tefano, seconded by Mr. Chiarella. Mr. Chiarella?
Yes.
Mrs. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Tefano?
Yes.
Mr. Rutsky?
Yes.
Mrs. Arminio?
Yes.
Mrs. DeMayo?
No.
Mr. Pluri?
Yes.
Mr. Nicotinsky?
Yes.
Mrs. Koloponowicz?
Yes.
Mr. Ryback?
Yes.
Mr. Board President, Mr. Tefano's motion passes.
Thank you. Okay. Now we're, yeah, is there any other, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
very quickly, I have a notice on the Home News Tribune, Wednesday, February 19th, 2020, which notices the public, and I know a lot of people may still not get paper, the paper delivered to them, but it says the Monroe Township Board of Education Office of Business Administrator, and it talks about the mobile lease modular space to provide temporary classrooms units. And there's no dollar amount. I would ask that in the future, we put a dollar amount. This is a public notice to inform our public of what we're spending. And it says that it is on file, so people would have to take an extra step to either find it or go to the administration or do. I would ask that we put all of the finances in our public notices. The item above this is a contract renewal to provide access and use of board docs, and there is a dollar amount of $8,702.19. So I don't understand why we couldn't put the numbers out. So I would ask that from now on, going forward, any of our public notices includes our dollar amounts.
These items were, I believe, done and voted on already, but you're talking about
Yes,
future,
but it's
similar
still a
type
public
things.
notice.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
To tell
I
the
wanna-
public
I just want to make
what
it
was
clear
done.
that those were
Yeah.
voted on.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Pluri.
President, a couple of items. First and foremost is I want to extend our deepest condolences to Dory Alvick, Michael Groski, and also to Kathy for losing a parent, and also to Beth Ann, who experienced a loss, and sorry to hear that. One item that I want to bring it to the attention of the board members and also to the public is that the India USF Monroe Township conducts this mentoring every year, and this year it's ongoing as we speak. On March 7th at the Rec Center at 2 p.m., we'll be celebrating the Women's History Month, where we're expecting close to 100 people. I request the board members, I request the council at the last council meeting to attend, and I request the board members and the public to attend as well. I believe that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Ryback?
Yes, Ms. Siegel.
I have a couple small items. First, I want to congratulate the high school dance team and the unified dance team. They recently had some great performances at the varsity boys basketball games. It was really nice to see them all come together and dance together. And I also want to thank the League of Women Voters for partnering with some of our history students and Rho Kappa Honor Society. They did a wonderful presentation on the importance of voting, the history of women's suffrage, and the role of the League. So it was a nice collaboration between the community and the students.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else from the board? Okay, I think then we could move on to public forum. This is open to any topic. You still have 4 minutes. I just ask that you state your name and address.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Sandra Ibrahim, 34 Bordentown Turnpike. I have been a resident of Monroe Township for 16 years and have 3 children attending the Monroe Public Schools. Today, I'm speaking to you on behalf of a number of fellow parents within the district. At this time, I ask those parents to please rise quietly for the benefit of the board. Thank you. Please be seated. Tonight, we have talked at length about the external structure of our school. What I'm going to bring to the table now is what is being taught internally to shape the minds of our children. We are deeply concerned over the law that Governor Murphy signed last year, which requires that school boards include LGBT-related materials into the curricula. We believe the fixation on sexuality is inappropriate, especially within the context of the curriculum advanced by Garden State Equality. Aside from the fact that it was prepared by a special interest lobbying group, the curriculum was also never vetted by professional educators. We completely agree that we should value and teach our children about those who have made meaningful contributions to society. However, this should be done without regard to an individual's sexuality. Moreover, in a diverse community such as Monroe, sexuality cannot be discussed in isolation without regard for its role in the student's family, faith, and culture. As such, it is best left to parents alone to educate and transmit their beliefs and values on sexuality to their children. We understand that the district is bound by the requirements of the law. However, the language of the law is broad enough, specifically the requirement of appropriateness. This allows for broad discretion in how the requirements can be implemented. Therefore, we request that the board select a curriculum that allows the merits of an individual to stand on their own without necessitating further inquiry into his or her sexuality. Alternatively, the content required by the law could be delivered in a one-time assembly rather than infiltrating it throughout all subjects. In an effort to be inclusive and to extend further rights and acceptance of one group, the LGBT curriculum in fact ends up limiting and discriminating against the rights of many. In closing, we ask that you take the wishes of parents into careful consideration as you decide how to implement the LGBT curriculum within our district, while respecting and honoring all groups versus singling out a particular group. I thank you for your time this evening, and I hope that you take our wishes into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else from the public?
Good evening. Michael Leske from 50 Mayberry Avenue. Yeah, I hope I don't steal Prakash's thunder here, yeah, but I certainly wanted to ask a question. Yeah, what is the current status of the demographic study that was being conducted for the district? Yeah, I guess that's going to become pretty important here, so it doesn't hold up the analysis of both plans A and B. Thanks.
We've received the administration just received the final demographic report this afternoon. Once we review it, it will be sent out to the Board of Education by this Friday in the confidential. And then the plan is to have Mr. Haber come and present at the next Board of Education meeting.
Prakash Parab, 33 Dana Drive. Next 2-3 months are going to be, next 2 months are going to be very important for us, public and BOE, also for lobbying for more funding for our school. One thing, in the Trenton, there is talk going on of consolidations of the school districts to going to regional, okay? So we should support that. And second thing, there is a talk going on that the corporations which are getting, tax benefits from the state, they should come and help the education. So we should support that. And indirectly, we should again challenge, we have been doing impact fees on builders. Applications are getting approved. Hope the new applications are not approved, but I was told in last December meeting when I asked point blankly to the council president that if new applications come, can you just delay or find some variations and delay those applications so that this overflooding of the schools we can solve? The answer was no. So I tell you, as far as good applications will come, they have no way legally they can say no to them, so they will approve new constructions. So we should also lobby for impact fees, okay? So those are the things. And also very important, again, we should go and say that. There is, again, Senator, I forgot the name of the...
Greenstein?
No, Senator Gopal. He is promoting few more things, okay? I lost my thought on that. Full note, changing the formula, modifying the formula, funding formula. So there's a petition going on from Senator Venugopal to the governor asking these points. So if you want, I'm going to put it on the Facebook so that we can support it, because many of the points, what is coming, petition to the governor, we support also, okay? So I want to give you all update. Thank you very much. I also want Mr. Gorski to inform us if there is testimony coming up, please inform us. If we come to know, we'll inform you so that we can go, whatever the argument, our aim is the same, get more funding for the school. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
George Gunkelman, 5 Kelly Court. It would seem to me that there's no real good reason for the demographic study to be confidential. What negative impact would be in the public knowing what the demographic study is? We can still come to the meeting and hear the explanation, but making items confidential items when it's not necessary gives the wrong impression to the public that there's something being hidden. Just my opinion. I asked a question earlier about what percentage of harassment is not being reported. No one responded. As regard to my question about bond refunding, thank you for the answer. My only other question about that is are all of those items that were presented one-time events, or are some of them recurring in future years? The other item that I asked about that no one responded to was the parking thing. Very few people, Kathy's probably the only one here, that remembers when the Marasco project was, Marasco Center project was funded. It's named after a former board chairman, by the way, or not, yeah, school board chairman, or school board president. And it was presented to the public as something that would be available for the public. That has become increasingly hard to do, to the point where now, for parking reasons, it's almost of no use. And, I don't know who made the decision to put the buses there as opposed to other places. Again, I'm repeating myself because no one, even though you said that it would responded under the administrator, no one responded, so I'm repeating the same question the second time. I don't know if I need to come back a third time. Thank you.
You can wait, we're going to answer that question now.
I can hear from my chair.
Mr. Gunkelman, with regard to the expenses that I mentioned before that contributed to the bond refunding, all of those costs are a one-time item, as we will only be refunding those bonds once. And they were all included in the savings that we presented already. So all of those costs were netted, and the savings are net of all of those fees, but it's a one-time item. Regarding the parking, this district has been challenged with parking at almost all of our schools for as long as I've been here. And administration has done some very creative solutions with redistricting to help alleviate the burden. The reason that some of our school buses, you will notice, are being parked at the school locations now is because our bus depot is too small to service the 65 buses that we currently have. So there's an overflow from that parking lot over to the schools. That's not uncommon. A lot of other school districts store buses at schools also. But parking is certainly a big consideration that administration is going to take into place. Dr. Alvick, Dr. Lehman, Mr. Tague, and I, when we explore to their fidelity the two plans that are approved by the board, the Plan A and the Plan B.
Mr. President, if I may, is there a plan to create a bus parking facility behind the fire station that's being built as we speak, right across?
Yes.
There was a plan to build a bus, expand bus parking onto that lot adjacent to the administration building. You can see that the fire department is beginning their portion of the construction. The deed for that property has not been transferred to the Board of Education yet. Depending on the development level that the board wishes to engage in on that property, it could require some studies and investment that could make the cost an item not to be included in an operating capital budget. From preliminary discussions with Mr. Tague, the testing of the soil, the deforestation of trees, the parking lot, the lighting, the fencing, the security cameras, all of these options that may be considered by the board are very costly and may not be something that we can include in the capital budget. So for now, we're making do with the crowded bus depot, and we have overflow at the schools.
The other piece with the parking for Marasco Center is our packs are being used all the time.
Yes, Dr. Alvick, thank you for reminding me of that. You know, our schools are used 24/7, pretty much 7 days a week by the community use program that we have. Reservations go through on our School Dude system online, and quite often some of the congestion that you see is because of competing events that are being held simultaneously in the parking lots. Not necessarily that the parking lot's too small, but that we're trying to accommodate too many.
Can the buses not be parked around the back of the school?
Beg your pardon?
Just a point on that. Can the buses be parked behind the school?
That would require additional infrastructure, including parking lots and grading and things of that nature, I believe. I'm not an expert on that, though.
Mr. Chiarella, do you want to say something?
No, I know we also have the buses here so that we could warm the engines because they're diesel.
Yes.
And remember also, some of our parking was also taken up with the trailers.
That's true, too.
Yes.
Can I address the HIB piece?
That was one of the
Yeah, we're in public forum, so we shouldn't be
Yes.
having this kind of conversation between the board
I
members.
didn't hear that, yes. Please, no cross-conversation.
Can I address the HIB piece, though?
question.
The other question?
Oh.
So HIB-wise, it's me. HIB-wise, every incident is reported. So we had 16 harassment, intimidation, bullying cases, 14 founded, 2 unfounded. There are no unreported cases. If there is a case that is reported to us, we're required to report it out in a public meeting. So there may be disciplinary cases and things, but all HIB cases were included in this report. So 14 founded, 2 unfounded. Everything's investigated.
Yeah, thank you. Did anyone else from the public? Sure.
My name is Peter Ibrahim, 34 Bordentown Turnpike, Monroe Township. I'm going to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. I'm a licensed New Jersey architect. I hear the conversation about the modular buildings. I would urge the board to make sure that whatever system is used is fully code compliant. There's a lot of jurisdictions in New Jersey and outside New Jersey that would not allow such systems because manufacturers cannot provide documentation proving code compliance. Aside from that, and of course I care about where my kids learn, but I do care more about what they learn. And at this point, I would like to know where is the board, or if they could shed some light on where they are with implementing Governor Murphy's law about LGBTQ curriculum.
So currently, we have monthly meetings with other assistant superintendents and superintendents in the county. We're just monitoring the districts that have implemented a version or different variations of curricula, and it will be a process that we'll engage in later in the school year. It's something we have to have in place by the beginning of the next school year. But right now, we haven't taken any action specifically revising any curricula or anything like that. We're really just listening to the feedback from the districts that are engaged in this already. We're listening to the feedback from the public, from the students, and we'll be pulling it all together towards the end of the year and over the summer.
A follow-up question. So if this would be to implement it in September, when do you need to decide on a curriculum material?
Anything that's done, it would be a board approved prior to its implementation, so it would be something that would go through a process over the course of the summer.
Will the parents be involved in developing such materials?
Typically, we leverage our staff members to do that, and they weave it into whatever. Again, it's all appropriate. It's a very vague law, so we'll look and see where it most appropriately fits in. We're going to take all the feedback from, like I said, the other districts that are currently doing standalone lessons, piloting things, and we'll weave it together and see how it looks.
We were certainly going to keep following up on this issue. Yep. We would like to know what our kids are learning. It is a very sensitive subject. We're not against anyone, but I feel that whatever we teach our kids and certain things about sexuality, I'd rather teach them myself to my own kids, not in school. Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else from Poland?
It's just a quick question. When we spoke
Can you
about
state your name and address, please?
I apologize. My name is Edward Chanat, 17 Rachel Lane, Monroe Township.
Thank you.
When we spoke about the demographic information, it was said that it's confidential. Somebody spoke about it, and we didn't hear an explanation why such information should be confidential.
Every week, the administration sends out a weekly confidential to the Board of Education. Until the board accepts the presentation from the demographer, it's a deliberative report, so the board will get it in the weekly confidential. I did not say that the demographics report is confidential. The demographics report will be released once the board sees it and it's approved at the next board meeting.
Right,
it is not confidential.
Thank you.
Anyone else from Poland? Rob?
Hey, Ram Rangnath, 6 Owens Drive. Again, I was not aware, Mr. Gorski, Ms. Kalpanovich, for your loss. Condolence to you, I was not aware of that. The one thing I wanted to say, just in this motion that was put forth by Mr. Tufano and was passed, it was almost a unanimous vote. I have not seen that in a long time on many things. So I think it's good. It gives me a lot of, hope that this board will really work together and really put the interests of the public, the students, and the taxpayers, right? And really, in looking at both these options, thoroughly evaluate them, put full heart and faith in both the options and whatever else comes in. And let's try to produce something that will win. I think it's been 2-3 years. Our kids are suffering, students are suffering. We want our Monroe townships to be in the top ranks, right? I think that's why we all moved. Other than the other beautiful aspects of the town, that's one of the important reasons. So let's work together, both the public, the board, the administration, to really put our best foot forward, put the best kind of winnable, referendum out there. And let's be smart about what we know is not going to be passing muster, right? I think we have good feedback from the last 2 referendums. So let's be open and please communicate as much as you can with the public, solicit our feedback, and we are here to support the board to help us succeed. Thank you.
Thank you. I see someone else coming.
Hello, Lisa Warner, 211 Dye Grove Road. I just have two issues. One's feeling pretty light in comparison to everything I've heard tonight, but I'm going to bring it up anyway. I have two children in Monroe school system. I've lived here for about 12 years. My son is a freshman. He is a competitive swimmer at the Princeton Y, and we are one of the only schools in the area that does not have a swim team. I told my son I would come and advocate for him tonight on that issue. My son did recently swim in the Greater Middlesex Conference with a handful of other Monroe students that swim as independent swimmers, with a existing staff person who is very willing to coach a swim team and has expressed interest in doing so. I have spoken with the athletic director beginning of the school year. He did advise me that there has been a swim proposal in the budget in years past, but it continues to get cut. And in lieu of some revenue issues that you all have discussed tonight, I'm not terribly optimistic about it going through this time. But it is something that is important to some of our children, particularly mine, in the community that do swim and enjoy it, and something that I certainly would like to see as part of our school system. Second issue, a little bit more, I guess, meaty in relationship to what's been discussed, as we discussed overcrowding the school system and ways to manage that, and I know there's differing points of view of what's the best way to do that. My concern as a resident of Monroe is that once we fix this problem, how do we prevent it from happening again? Because I feel like that my neighbors, and I have that discussion routinely, is that we did not cause this problem, nor did you, but we're being tasked to fix it, and that feels uncomfortable because whatever we approve, how do we prevent perhaps the township from then taking advantage of a new school system, a new building that now can house even more students, so we're going to build more houses. That is a concern that I know that my neighbors and I have as residents of the township, that we're being tasked to fix something we didn't create. We're not opposed to being helpful in a solution, but we are skeptical that we will not be taken advantage of again by the powers that be that will now exploit whatever solutions we come up with in 5 years from now, and we'll be sitting here again having the same conversation. So that is my concern. Those are my two issues. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public? Not seeing anyone else from the public, we can move to our closed session resolution. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Township of Monroe hereby moves to go into closed session in accordance with the Sunshine Law, Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975, NJSA 10:4-6 to 10:4-21, to discuss the following subjects: harassment, intimidation, bullying, discussions regarding MTA negotiations, discussions regarding MTSA negotiations. Following closed session, action may be taken. This discussion conducted in closed session can be disclosed to the public at such time as the need for confidentiality no longer exists.
Second.
Okay. Any
Aye.
discussion?
Aye.
All in favor? No one opposes? Okay. All right, we're back from closed session. We're in session, and now we have a public forum for closed session items only. I don't see anybody from some people back there. Does anybody want to speak to? No, okay. So we can move to the next scheduled Board of Education meeting is scheduled for March 18th, 2020 at 7 p.m. at Monroe Township High School. Need a motion to adjourn? Second, okay. Any discussion, questions? No? All in favor? Aye. 100%. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.